11 years I clawed through ice and monsters carved from the cold, chasing a tower everyone swore couldn't be beaten. They called it a trash game, impossible, punishing, built to break every player who touched it. I called it my whole life. Beating it should have been the end. It wasn't. Floor after floor I froze, I raged. I nearly quit more times than I could count, screaming at a game that seemed built to hate me. Then finally, floor 501, conquered, first person ever. I stood there almost hollow, wondering if it was even real. It was simply fun. But the system had one more surprise waiting, a reboot coming in 12 hours. Back in the real world, none of that mattered. I was 27, barely scraping by on $500 a month, streaming to a handful of viewers after my gym cut my training. People once told me I had a fighter's future. Lately, money mattered more than dreams. I drank until I blacked out, then woke up hungover with one idea: post my tower clear. Then my screen lit up mid-upload. The Tower of Trials had become reality. My chat exploded. Was this some stunt? I froze. A mark burned cold and blue into my hand. Then the message that stopped my heart: clear the next floor within 30 days or humanity itself would pay for it. This was never just a game. I sat there for a second, letting it sink in. The whole world had just accepted the tower was real. No time to waste cooling off. If Tower of Trials had actually broken into our reality, I had somewhere to be. The world might end in 30 days, and somehow, underneath the fear, my heart was pounding with excitement. Outside, Central City was pure panic, people screaming for trains out, some scheming to flee the country entirely, since the tower had gone up everywhere, not just here. Running wasn't going to save anyone, so while the crowd bolted for the exits, I turned the other way and headed down, straight into the one place I actually needed to be. The Korean Empire had about 30 of these extra zones, and this one, the central underground stronghold, was closest to me. Inside, a notice flashed. I'd entered an event zone, already packed with other Tower of Trials players, all eyeing each other because whatever item was coming, there'd only be enough for one of us. Then someone grabbed my attention. "You're Kang Jin-woo, right?" Turned out I knew him, my former CEO, the man whose company had chained streamers into contracts that bled them dry the more they worked, buried under lawyers the second anyone complained. He grinned like none of that happened, calling me a former co-worker and pitching we team up. Every friend I'd made in that industry had already quit because of him. He actually offered to rewrite my contract on better terms, like I still needed him. The world had changed, and so had I. I didn't answer. I just decked him. Felt incredible. But I didn't have time to enjoy it. That item was about to drop, and I couldn't afford to miss it. Then the ground tore open, and a massive tree shot up through the rain, the mangrove of greed. My memory hadn't failed me. This was exactly where it was supposed to appear. And it was already fruiting, the kind of fruit that could pump up your strength, agility, health, and magic all at once. It turned into a stampede, grown adults screaming it's mine, and throwing hands over apples. My former CEO even sidled back up smug, saying if I'd teamed with him, we'd have split the loot instead of losing it all. I just watched the chaos chew through every last fruit. This wasn't the fight worth winning. Not yet. The mangrove of greed's fruit sent the whole crowd into a frenzy, hunters leaping over each other, grabbing what they could. One snatch and I felt agility surge through me. Most people down there had no idea what that fruit really was. Veterans of the Tower of Trials knew to chase it, but knowing wasn't going to be enough, not for what came next. Then it hit me. I'd forgotten. Eat every fruit and that tree turns hostile. Screams broke out as branches came alive. I died here 50 times back when this was just a game. I was ready to walk when a voice stopped me, giving up. A suited stranger said the real prize came from clearing the tree completely, and pitched diving in together, one of us as bait. He swore one hesitation would kill us both, so I played along and we charged the tree from opposite sides. The second the branches lashed out, he showed his hand, called me a fool for trusting him, and threw me in as bait instead. Honestly, I almost laughed. My old CEO hadn't changed one bit. Funny thing about bait, position matters more than promises. He was the one standing further out, so the tree's branches swarmed him, not me. He begged for help. I told him to sue me, same as he always threatened his streamers with. He screamed that he didn't want to die. I didn't move. Goodbye, I said. Then the tree came at me from both sides at once. Dodging those branches wasn't hard. I'd done it 1,000 times in the game. I kept moving until the trunk finally cracked open and the core underneath was exposed. Same monster, same rhythm, even in the real world. It was just an event boss, no real experience for killing it, but I wasn't leaving empty-handed. Even beat up as I was, I still couldn't dodge everything, so I stopped trying to avoid every strike and started deflecting them instead, knocking the vines aside one after another. There was nothing to fear here. I'd repeated this exact fight, this exact rhythm, more times than I could count. The fight dragged on, but I could feel the end coming. Then a cloud of pollen drifted off the dying branches, the kind that dulled the mind if you breathed it in. Lucky for me, the counter was almost insultingly simple. Just hold your breath. One last exchange and it was over. A voice declared me the first person to ever beat the mangrove of greed. Then came a request I remembered too well: state your name for the Hall of Fame. I wasn't handing over my real identity, so the system logged me as nothing but unknown. Whatever came of that, I had bigger problems right now. The mangrove of greed's fruit dropped as tree essence and the system chimed, stats up. One bite jumped my strength, agility, vitality, and magic all at once. 6 points total, worth 4 levels in a single mouthful. Nothing across 50 floors paid out like that. My status window still read level 1, but I was already sitting on 12 banked stat points. I knew what came next before it happened. The video was going up in 10 minutes and the chat exploded. Most of it was disbelief, calling it luck, calling it fake, calling it anything but real. But then the upload finished, and the doubt just vanished. Reactions across every platform lined up the same way. Even on my old account, the tone had already changed. Was clearing a level 1 dungeon really that shocking? Maybe, but the real shock was quieter. I'd spent years unable to scrape together rent, staring into an empty fridge some nights just to forget I was hungry. Yesterday I'd have taken any payout. Now, 10 billion won on the table, and I turned it down. Information nobody else on Earth had that was worth more than cash. I only learned later, the moment the game updated, mana leaking from the Tower of Trials spread across Seoul. It didn't wreck anything, but every legendary artifact locked inside the tower now had a real copy out in the world, and the richest concentration of them sat in one place, the National Museum of Korea. A country of treasure hunters and thieves were about to descend on it. So I went there myself, stepped into the event area expecting chaos and got quiet, too quiet. Then I felt it, something already inside, waiting. Someone had beaten me here, and when the dust cleared, it wasn't a person waiting in the dark. Something else had gotten there first, and it didn't look like it planned on sharing the museum's treasures with anyone. I wasn't the first one there. Someone or something was already crouched in the dark of the museum, and that told me everything. The great map of the East Land was worth killing over. Whoever held it would know exactly where every extra zone hid its treasure. Since the world changed, I'd learned people adapt fast to a new kind of greed. The relic room was already a battlefield, hunters clawing at each other over scraps, screaming that everything was theirs. One voice cut through it. A young man with a fresh, unique ability declared the map his alone, threatening to break anyone's neck who argued. An old man calling himself Min Young-ho stepped up and simply refused to agree. The punk sneered that words wouldn't save him. Min Young-ho just smiled and threw the question back: which happens faster, your hand snapping my neck or my flame turning you to coal? Before the kid could even process the word magic, a pillar of fire swallowed him whole. Lesson learned the hard way. I found out later what else was moving that night. A young hunter had teamed up with a woman named Yuri, trusting her to watch his back while he chased the loot. She didn't need the map though, just one man, dead center of the chaos. Anyone who got between her and him, she promised she'd handle personally. Yuri wasn't bluffing. She had a monster on a leash, a black jackal-headed thing wreathed in gold light, and it laid down her terms. Move, and you're the enemy, and I'll have him chew your head off. She just smiled and called it cooperation. Around me, people were realizing just how many hunters had already awakened and how strong they'd already gotten. One looter caved instantly, dumping the map and begging to keep his life. I couldn't watch the museum get trashed like this. Didn't anyone respect what these relics were? Yuri called me Mr. Fearless, asked if I looked like I was joking, then gave the order, get him. Her monster came at me with everything it had. I answered with everything I had. I'd barely felt Yuri's jackal thing hit my palm, and I could already see it in their faces, the way the crowd froze when my hand came away clean. No burn, no cut, nothing. Whatever's got your puppy spooked, I said. It just lost its only weapon. Who said I was out of options? She snapped, and dark mana poured off her like smoke, more statues waking up, more monsters at her back. I clocked it fast, 5 puppets moving at once, controlled by one girl. That took real power. I just didn't like her attitude about it. Then let me show you, I said. Words weren't going to cross a gap that wide. She needed to see it. I fed mana into my own relic, the pinewood tiger, and the card became a beast, a real, breathing predator standing where a picture used to be. The ruler of the mountains had arrived. Her jackal bared its teeth right in the tiger's face, brave or stupid I couldn't tell. I didn't wait to find out. "Eat it," I said, and my tiger answered with a roar that shook the street before it lunged, jaws first, straight for her monster's throat. It wasn't even a fight. My tiger tore through her jackal's guard like it was paper, claws first, teeth second, no wasted motion. The jackal got one snarl in before it went under a wave of raw Mountain King strength. After that, it was just noise. Yuri went pale watching it. She'd used artifacts before, sure, but never one that fought like a living thing, never a force that felt like it was peeling the skin off her arms. She dropped to her knees out of moves. "Who is this guy?" she whispered. "Fair question." "Hand it over," I told her, the mask of Tutankhamun, sitting useless in her bag since Korea had no use for it. She caved fast once the tiger growled. That gave me my second piece toward the great map of the East Land. She'd forgotten she was even chasing the same prize. I told her not to worry about that. I told the Pinewood tiger to hold that ground, nobody else gets through. While the crowd stood frozen, still staring at the wreckage of what used to be Yuri's monster, my mind was already on the next problem. Preparations done. Time to go claim the strongest skill the Tower of Trials had ever hidden. 2 floors up in the museum, we hit something new, a barrier none of us recognized. Min Young-ho went pale just looking at it. 5-star rank, he said, the highest he'd ever seen. Neither blade nor magic touched it. I reached out anyway, and the second my hand met that wall, it lit up like lightning. I found it, the seam where the barrier's mana was leaking out, the one weak point in the whole thing. Min Young-ho said there was a way through, but it came with a catch. Someone had to keep pouring flame magic into that seam non-stop until it finally gave. I asked how long. His answer, until he dug up everything else worth taking. We struck the deal. He'd get the map, I'd get my shot at the barrier. So the old man let loose, fire pouring into the wall while I braced myself. "Hurry," he kept shouting, sweat and flame everywhere. I just smiled. I'd give it my best too, just in my own way. Buried behind glass, I found it, a single coin, the last puzzle piece for the strongest skill I'd been chasing my whole run through the Tower of Trials. I pressed it against the right eye of the mask of Tutankhamun, and the 2 relics lit up, screaming against each other like they recognized something. Then came the warning, pay the price, or don't bother continuing. Against every rule, the relics fused. Out of the wreckage came something new, the eye of truth, sharp enough to read anyone's real intentions. But that wasn't the real prize. What I actually unlocked was the ability I'd built my whole career around, fusion. The power to copy any skill in this world and forge something stronger out of the pieces. Fusion had a catch. Copying a skill meant meeting its hidden condition first, and those weren't always simple. While Min Young-ho screamed at me to hurry, burning through everything he had left, I studied his flame and found the catch. He'd spent his life burying his real feelings behind that scowl. To copy it, I just had to make him snap. So I let him keep screaming, then told him to stop. Turned out we never needed that fire burning the whole time. I'd already gotten what I needed just from watching him lose it. Min Young-ho froze, sweat still steaming off his knuckles. Then why'd I tell him to use his skill? Because pissing him off was the whole plan. I killed his barrier with a single word, cheap Latin dispelling magic, nothing fancy, but enough to prove his whole force field had been a waste of mana. Now it was time to rattle him. I knew this tower cold, floor by floor, that map to the 10th floor he was so desperate to protect, worthless to me, but I wasn't about to just let it sit there. I flashed him a grin under the mask. "Didn't I already tell you?" I raised my hand and a flame kindled in my palm, calm as anything. "I don't need this," I said, and I meant every word of it. He screamed as I set the map on fire. If anyone else got their hands on it, they'd leapfrog straight to knowledge I'd bled 11 years to earn. Getting rid of it was the only smart move. He came apart, cursing me, swearing he'd grind me into paste. That's when the conditions locked into place. My fusion had found its trigger, and a skill began forming. The system confirmed it. I'd copied the element of fire, rank B, control over flame itself, filed away for good. Not bad for my first copy, I thought. He was still screaming threats at me, so I let him in on the joke. I hadn't just watched his skill. I'd already activated my own copy of it. His face went slack the second the flame caught in my palm. He just stood there staring, like his brain refused to process what his eyes were telling him. Same skill as his, but mine already burned hotter. He backed off the anger, sizing me up for real, asking what I actually was. I told him straight, if he wanted an easy climb up this tower, he'd better start listening to me. Later, walking those museum stairs alone, I realized only 4 former high rankers had shown up that day. I was one of them. I got it now why people like that would want to shrink their own risk once the tower stopped being a game and started being real. Still, I stretched the tension out of my shoulders and had to laugh a little. Did they really think playing it safe would put them ahead of me? Then a name surfaced, Kang Jinhyuk, one more of the four to watch. I still needed power as much as I could grab. A grizzled stranger sized me up, said he'd be in touch, and sent me downstairs to level up with Yuri. This war was far from over. Walking off, I claimed every last spoil as mine. Then my knees buckled. I was closer to my limit than I wanted to admit. What I didn't expect was the fallout. Back at the National Museum of Korea, an incident had left dozens dead and hundreds injured, the culprits after the same Tower Relic replicas I'd already been chasing. It wasn't just Korea. America, Europe, China, Japan, the same chaos was breaking out everywhere, players worldwide scrambling to climb before anyone else. I pulled up the security footage myself. The footage was real, that tiger tearing through the frame, my tiger, wasn't some trick. People online refused to believe a person could do that. Until someone recognized me from the Tower of Trials forums. That's the guy who killed the mangrove of greed, they said. I hadn't even set foot in the tower yet, and already too many people knew my face. Turns out the government was already investigating me, so I needed to bury my identity fast. They'd stood up a whole new office overnight, the Awakened Association, to manage people like me. Its chairman, Han Sang-jin, came in person to recruit me, swearing on his own name, "Join us, and the government backs you in everything." Full support, no limits, a hell of an offer. What I only learned later, word of that offer had spread and not everyone was thrilled. Some admitted flat-out jealousy, that kind of power could remake a life, they said, calling me some kind of exception. Others weren't so generous. They'd been used like tools themselves and made it clear, no matter the offer, they wanted nothing to do with joining anyone. Han Sang-jin didn't bother negotiating. He knew the math already. One properly trained person outweighs 100 average ones, so instead of naming a number, he just slid a blank check across the table and let me write my own price. I turned it over in my head. If he'd landed that chairman's seat, it was either connections, or he actually had real time inside the tower himself. Honestly, I hoped for the second. A skill worth stealing would make all this a lot more interesting. That night, right on the hour, the Tower of Trials opened to the public. We crossed through together, and the world on the other side hit like a physical thing, cliffs, waterfalls, sky stretching farther than any screen ever showed it. For me, it was memory. For everyone else beside me, it was the first time any of this had ever been real. "We're finally here," someone shouted, and yeah, it was exactly like I remembered, down to the last stone, though I still couldn't quite believe it. Looking around, I could tell everyone here was a total newbie. As a welcome, the system dropped 100 coins on each of us, the tower's currency, earned by uploading footage, 10,000 views buying another 100. But the system had teeth: cheat the view count, fake your climb, and there'd be no warning shot, just punishment, straight and hard, fine by me. Honestly, that's exactly the kind of rule I wanted to hear. See, the whole thing ran on a broadcast system, the bridge between people stuck climbing and people watching from outside. Get famous, get views, get rich, simple as that. While I worked that out, everyone else was already sprinting for the nearest goblin cave, elbowing past each other, desperate to stake a claim before anyone else could. Earning coins would be easy. I knew every inch of this place already, but I wasn't about to hand that knowledge over in a video for everyone else to farm off of. That would cost me more than it earned me. No, I already knew exactly what my first move needed to be, something nobody else would even think to try. It reminded me of years back, stuck on the lower floors with no way forward, forced to retrace every step until we finally cracked it inside some abandoned ruin. That was the same climb where I found out my own build had been written off as a joke from day one. Funny, looking back, all those doubts, and I'd still spent years growing that character anyway. I still remember the exact words. Would I really like to delete my character? I'd poured everything into that build, and losing it gutted me. But sulking wouldn't rebuild anything. I clicked yes. Next time, I told myself I'd reach the top. 6 years had passed since that night, and here I was again, staring down Labyrinthos, Daedalus's own maze, difficulty B, built to confuse and trap anyone who entered it. Getting past floor 6 of the tower meant cracking this place first. I'd sworn I'd never walk these halls again, and yet oddly I almost missed them. All right, let's go. The moment I stepped inside, it hit me, the crumbling arches, the drifting moths, even the smell of old stone. Nothing had changed. It was exactly as I remembered it, down to the last crack in the floor. A little luminescent moth drifted past, and I couldn't help greeting it like an old friend. Then I heard voices behind me, a whole group of strangers, standing where no one should have been. "Who are you people?" I asked, already sure I knew the answer. Turned out they'd tailed me the whole way, betting that a level 1 who could crack a labyrinth's door without a key had to be sitting on something worth taking. They weren't foolish enough to think I'd hand it over freely, so their plan was simpler: drag me into sharing the risk and hope the rewards followed. A woman stepped forward first, all smiles. "Park Hana," she said, once a tower climber herself who'd reached the second floor. She pitched cooperation, sharing the danger between us. I wasn't buying the warmth so easily, until my eye of truth lit up and read her clean. No lie, just a skill called commune, one that could melt anyone's guard, mine included. Commune, I'd never copied anything like it, and I filed the thought away for later. Then the rest of the group introduced themselves one by one: Jang Chul-sik, Lee Hai-min, Jang Mina, all tower dropouts from the early floors, and finally Chen Mingguk and Du Kwang-wol, who admitted this labyrinth was their first time seeing anything like it. I gave them a fake name. Kang Jinhyuk figured they'd want something to remember me by later anyway. Park Hana hit me with her commune skill, expecting me to melt like everyone else. It didn't work, and she knew it, so I played along, agreed to walk them through the monsters in here, and the labyrinth answered first. Glowing moths lit the dark, and something already felt off. Then the walls came alive. Blades tore out of nowhere and Hana froze. I yelled for her to dodge and hauled her clear while debris ripped past everyone. When it finally stopped, we counted heads and came up one short. Mina was gone. A labyrinth that reshapes itself belonged on some upper floor, not waiting on the first floor for level 1 players who had no business surviving it. Hai-min tried to navigate us out, but her skill died the moment the walls shifted. We were properly trapped. Figured as much. This crew walked in relying on one gadget like the place was a corner store. Before I could do anything, Hana rounded on me, screaming I'd gotten them hurt by keeping quiet, that Mina was missing because of me. I just asked her, "Did I ask you to follow me?" That set the rest of them off. One guy leveled a glowing blade at me, snarling he'd hated me since we met. I was ready to answer him, but the ground answered first. Something massive tore up out of the floor with a roar that shook the walls. A minotaur. Someone screamed Chen Mingguk's name in terror, and just like that, our little argument became the least of anyone's problems. The ground exploded and a horned beast twice my height roared up out of nowhere, its arms scattering everyone before they could even scream. Park Hana screamed that we were all going to die. I didn't wait to argue. I shoved past her, planted myself between the group and those horns, and said one thing: "Get out of the way." Someone behind me gasped, wondering what I thought I was doing, taking on a minotaur barehanded. I ignored it. 11 years grinding the Tower of Trials had burned every one of this thing's moves into my body, and I was already moving before it even finished winding up. Its horn ripped past me and hit nothing. I straightened up, grinning. All right. Then a notification flashed across my vision. I'd unlocked a hidden stat called Rift. I had no idea yet what it actually did, but something told me it was going to matter. I stayed locked on the Minotaur, reading every twitch before it moved. This wasn't a fight I could win by trading blows, not stuck at level 1, so I kept dodging, buying myself time to figure out exactly what I'd just gained. The system spelled it out. Rift shrinks the gap between me and anything stronger, and widens it against anything weaker, knocking a full level off however monstrous my opponent was for every 3 points I built up. Permanently stuck at level 1, this was the only way I'd ever found to actually grow. The Minotaur came at me again and again, roaring louder each time it missed. I'd already taken hits like these tens of thousands of times before. Its whole attack pattern was already written into my body. Every clean dodge ticked my rift up another notch, 0.05 at a time. Somewhere behind me the truth landed. I wasn't just some guide, I was a former top player. No matter how monstrous the Minotaur's swings were, none of it mattered if it couldn't land a single one on me. Then I heard it. My God, we were about to go against someone like that. I knew going in that trying to kill that thing outright would have gotten me killed for nothing, so I stopped swinging and started dancing instead. Every dodge that grazed past death fed something new into me, a hidden stat called Rift, ticking up point by point. One scratch from dying for 1 stat point, not a bad trade, though I told myself I should probably quit while I was ahead. While I played with it, Park Hana and the others tried slipping out along the walls, done with the whole ordeal. I stopped them and told them the truth: dodge that thing clean and you'd earn a hidden stat too, easier than it looked. Before anyone could decide, the Minotaur lunged straight for the group, and somebody went down screaming. One of them just froze up, fear locking his legs while the horns came in. I barked at him to duck, to put distance between himself and dying. Then I turned back to my actual dance partner, my Minotaur, my calf, and let it come. weaving through every swing while the fight lit up the ruins around us. When the dust settled, Hana and the others were shaking, relieved the beast was finally gone. It wasn't. I admitted I'd been coating myself in the luminescent moth's glow on purpose, pulling the Minotaur back again and again, free healing, free training over and over, for as long as it took to clear the labyrinth. A month of that was more than they could stomach. They chose to go it alone. Hana asked if there was really no way out on our own. There wasn't, not without me, so the group made their choice, better to stick with me through the labyrinth than risk it alone. Fine by me, but nothing in this world comes free, even a bus ride needs a fare, and neither did I. Then I held my blade to her throat and named my price. No riddles, no negotiation, just spit out every coin you've got. Their faces went white. I'd warned them, nothing here was free, and I meant it, even from the people I'd just agreed to protect. What I didn't find out until much later was that while I was buried in that labyrinth, some rising pro streamer named Mayang Hwan was out carving through the Goblin Cave, playing solo hero in front of an audience of millions. His footage blew up overnight, a 15-hour solo clear. The caption bragged, and the comments ate it up completely. One viewer even joked she'd have to go change her underwear over it. Nobody watching had any idea what really happened behind that camera. Because it wasn't solo at all. His own crew had been feeding him buffs the entire time, then scrubbed the evidence out before upload so every bit of credit landed on him. The coins rolled in, but scroll the comments and plenty of people already smelled something fake. Then overnight the rankings flipped on him. Some total unknown had just pulled off a world first, a +10 item reinforcement, and shot straight past Mayang Hwan's video into the #1 spot. Mayang Hwan about lost his mind. The odds on a +10 were something like 1 in 9 million, and his own chat was spiraling trying to guess who just done it. Whoever that was, the feat had happened barely 10 minutes earlier, close enough that it was already circling back toward me. I barked orders at the group, firewood, moss, get moving, and grumbling they went. Me, I had my own errand, 10 years in this tower, and I still hadn't forgotten the golden rule, never let coins sit idle. I pulled up the store to see what junk might actually be worth something. I scrolled past the usual garbage and grabbed 4 things nobody else would touch: enchanted tarot cards, a busted bronze key fragment, a broken cartwheel, and 10 reinforcement scrolls with odds so bad they were basically a joke. Trash, all of it, at least that's what anyone else would have called it. The system thanked me for my purchase, said what mattered wasn't the item but how I used it, so I fused 3 of them together. Combination successful. What came out was an incomplete luck relic, capable of maxing out my luck stat for a few precious minutes, restricted range and all. Success. Most people would have wasted a relic like that, not knowing how far their luck could actually stretch, but I knew. 11 years of grinding this tower had taught me exactly where that ceiling sat. I triggered it, felt my luck value spike to its true maximum, and turned straight to those garbage reinforcement scrolls. Those scrolls had a success rate near 0. With my luck maxed out, 0 became 100%. I poured all 10 into one battered dagger and watched it climb, +1, +2, all the way to +10 maxed. First one on the entire Korean server. Reward, 5,000 coins and an entry straight into the Hall of Fame. Finally, I had something usable in my hand, and moss, apparently. Day 10 of this miserable life in the labyrinth, we'd built a fire out of twigs, slept on beds of moss, and eaten nothing but mushrooms and more moss. Rough living, but now at least I was armed. Right on schedule, the labyrinth spat out a minotaur, and I dropped it without breaking a sweat. My little band of dropouts just stood there shaking. We're just going to get used up and thrown away by that devil, one of them muttered. Meanwhile, viewers were already picking apart Park Hana's stream, and she was running her own calculations, treating every one of us like a spare part she'd handpicked. One of the group had a plan: kill me in my sleep, hole up in a stone chamber we'd found, and wait for Park Hana's older brother to reach us. The only snag was figuring out how. Then Hana said it plain, do it while he's out, and a fist came down at me. The punch never landed, my reaction speed stopped it cold, monstrous enough that they knew a surprise attack wouldn't work, and neither would a straight assault. We can't keep taking this, one of them snapped. Hana wasn't giving up either. Her own brother, she admitted, kept sending her into exactly this kind of danger through the Crow Guild. So they went all in. Somebody produced a poison strong enough to kill 100 trolls in a single drop, plus a giant bumblebee stinger for good measure. If we're doing this, Hana said, let's go all the way, something he can't handle. I felt it coming before I saw it. I thought, here we go. They played at casual roasted moss, wild mushrooms, the whole survival show routine, while Park Hana kept piling more onto my plate and asking if I wanted extra. I took a bite right in front of everyone. Up above, the chat lost it. He actually ate it. They thought they'd just fed me poison and I'd walked straight into it. They weren't ready for what came next. The poisoned food came flying back, and it was the one who tried to feed it to me who choked and went down screaming. "Idiot," I said. "Did you really think I'd eat whatever you handed me without checking?" I'd swap the plates the second they got distracted. Their ambush had just poisoned itself. I'd let them keep talking, keep filming, right up until I filed the report myself. Broadcasting my fight without permission was illegal, plain and simple, and the system agreed the moment I hit yes. Every hidden viewer watching through Park Hana's secret feed got yanked out of the chat, one by one. 10 viewers dropped to 0 in seconds. She just stood there, stunned, asking where they'd all gone. No sooner had I killed their little audience than the system delivered the real verdict. My group's penalty for the illicit broadcast had been upgraded to something called a harsh fate. The ground split and a monster crawled out. Park Hana turned to me like I was her last option. "You'll fight it again, right?" I didn't even look at her. "Just tell me where to go." Before I moved, I turned on Park Hana instead. "You're quite shameless," I said. "You tried to poison me. Why would I keep telling you anything?" She swore I'd been the one talking. That was the joke. 240 hours alone with her had quietly triggered my fusion, copying her skill commune. She'd been trusting me, because I'd stolen the very charm that made people trust her. "You're no longer needed," I told her, and meant it. I didn't need her cooperation anymore. She panicked, screaming that her brother's Crow Guild would make me regret it. I let the threat hang there while I turned and cut loose on the beast, power roaring off me. "Watch from over there," I said, "between that guild and me. Figure out which one you should actually fear." The beast came at me full force, and I just kept slipping the hits, feeling my rift stack creep up with every clean dodge point by point, the gap between us shrinking. "Still too shallow," I muttered, and it caught a blow anyway, staggering. It wasn't the finishing move, but every hit it landed and every hit I dodged tipped the fight further my way. Problem was, I couldn't actually kill the thing as I was, so I decided to fix that. I called up Element of Fire, the skill I'd copied off Min Young-ho, and let it rip. Flame swallowed my arm and the beast in the same breath, and for the first time since it crawled out of the ground, it looked like it understood what real trouble was. By the end it was just lumbering, snorting, throwing wild swings with nothing left behind them. I stepped past its reach with the dagger I'd reinforced to its limit glowing in my hand, calm as anything. "Don't flail around so much," I told it. It wasn't a threat anymore, it was just cleanup. "The meat gets too tough when there's too much muscle on it," I thought, sizing up the beast in front of me. "Almost there," I told myself. Then the Minotaur let out a roar that shook the walls. The system flashed a warning I didn't like. It had just activated something called LV-10 Berserker. The name alone told me everything. This wasn't the same slow brute I'd been carving up anymore. Whatever came next, I wasn't getting it for free. I planted my feet, tightened my grip on the dagger, and waited for the first hit to land. The Minotaur came apart at the seams with rage and slammed into me with everything it had. I met it head-on, blade first, the impact tearing the air between us, and when the dust settled, we were both still standing. Park Hana looked ready to be sick just watching. The system spelled it out, 30% more attack, speed, and reflexes for 5 minutes, and enough mind now to talk. "Human," it snarled, "I'll rip you to shreds and scatter the pieces so you never trespass here again." My own magic felt sharper than it should have. Not bad, I thought. I just grinned and leveled my blade at it, purple energy crackling down the edge. "Bring it," I said. If it wanted to talk big, it could come find out exactly how much bigger I'd gotten. It roared that it would crush me and threw everything into the swing. But something had changed. I wasn't dodging anymore. I was catching the blow and throwing its own force back at it. From where she stood, all Park Hana could manage was disbelief. A boss monster with a skill over level 10, and I was redirecting it like nothing. Not even the full might of her brother's Crow Guild could have stood up to what that Minotaur had become. So when it finally went down, Park Hana just stared, shaking, muttering the same question over and over. How could that crazy bastard possibly have done that? I didn't bother answering. For a second, time seemed to stop. I remembered every death I'd racked up in the Tower of Trials, the drowning, the "you died" screen, the years I spent hating a world that never let me change no matter how hard I fought. But this fight was different. 57 rift points banked already, and the gap between me and this monster kept closing. The beast screamed that I was full of cheap tricks, that I could only scratch it. Maybe, But every dodge, every clash was quietly rewriting the numbers between us. My rift stat crept up with each exchange, and the gap it kept mocking me over kept shrinking. Then the beast just stopped moving, turned out LV. 10 Berserker had a price, 5 minutes of monstrous power, then 24 hours frozen solid. I'd banked 57 rift points off that one fight, shaving 19 levels off the gap between us. Hana asked if it was over. Not close. I had 20 days before it woke up hungry again, and I meant to use everyone. 20 days later, I was still swinging slash after slash, grinding the same fight over and over until the number I needed finally locked in, 100 rift points. The beast growled that I was getting weaker by the day. Funny, since it was the one fading. I told it goodbye, calf, and figured the only thing left was to put it down for good. Hana about choked on the word dispose, like she still hadn't clocked what she just watched. What I didn't find out until later was that on that very same day, some company was putting out a call for interns, and a green-eyed young woman was about to get pulled into all of this without the faintest idea what she was signing up for. I sat across from Park Hana and let her sweat. She begged to join, threw her commune skill on the table like it still meant something, then blurted out the one thing I actually wanted to hear, that she'd never betray me. I let the silence stretch before I announced her hire, but my mind had already moved on. Somewhere out there, Braham's ring was about to change hands. Somewhere across town, a rattled hunter was already caving, begging me to take Braham's ring instead of his life. His brother was trading it to the Crow Guild for Korean ginseng of all things. That name stopped me cold. The Crow Guild meant Park Hana's brother. Braham's ring was the best drop on the first floor, faster feet, magic resistance, a ward against monster spells. I wasn't about to let it slip past me. My eye of truth lit up. She wasn't lying, so I made it official. Congratulations, intern, welcome to the veteran company. No days off, I told her, and I don't care if it's 3 a.m. or you're on Jeju Island. When I call, you come. Then came the real paperwork. I read the world's memory for what I needed and fed her commune straight into my element of fire. Fusion did the rest. She actually laughed, figured I meant paper and ink. I didn't. Welcome to the Black Company, intern. The mark burned itself into her face, searing and screaming its way onto her skin. Brand of tribulation, difficulty A. Whoever wears it obeys me, can't lift a finger against me, and if they try, their whole body goes up in flame. Cruel, maybe. Effective, definitely. We broke through and daylight hit my eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. First clear of the labyrinth, our names would hit the Hall of Fame by morning, 5,000 coins each for surviving it. Park Hana smiled through the exhaustion, then I held out my hand. Intern, hand them over. She did, without a word. I was sitting on more coins than any other player on record. Get me Braham's ring, I told her. 3 days. She flinched. Too short, she said, so I gave her 2 instead and let the brand answer for me. It lit up across her face, burning through her protest until all that was left was pain and a promise. She'd get it, no matter what. While I ran my own game, the whole country watched a bigger one. The news said the Dangsan Guild, Korea's top guild, was gearing up to solo the 3rd floor boss in a month, while the US, Europe, even Japan stayed stuck. China kept quiet, betting Korea would go it alone. Watching the broadcast, I couldn't help wondering how much of the tower's fortune they wanted to lock down for themselves. 90 days, that's all the tower gave me to clear each floor before the timer reset the stakes and shoved me at the next one. No retries after human extinction. That line stuck with me. Rush ahead on a weak foundation, and I'd hit a wall I couldn't climb back from. I couldn't afford weak foundations. So before floor 3, I needed real intel, not the panic and fake rumors flooding the city since the tower tore through it. I needed people I actually trusted. I scrolled through old contacts from my 11 years grinding the game and landed on exactly 2 names I still believed. Lee Tiemann and Yu Yonhwa, my old raid partners, changed a lot since our gaming days, but unmistakably them. I turned my eye of truth on both of them right there at the table. Machine King, Kyongsun Taekwondo, their levels, their skills laid bare. We'd been compatible back then, and once they caught up to floor 20, their whole kit was mine for the taking. Then the third guy at the table introduced himself, Kang Jinhyuk, 27 years old. His character name from 11 years back, though, Poop Fart. He about died of embarrassment saying it out loud. Turned out he'd been a streamer on Paprika TV, watched by half the table, before he quietly walked away from it. We dropped the formalities fast, old teammates, no reason to stay stiff. Funny thing was, after years of people trying to use me or stab me in the back, trusting these 2 in person felt strange, but good. They caught me up on guild movements, streamer trends, then dropped something darker, a group kidnapping people to run a scam factory. Someone cut in, sharp. Then Teeman caught something off. I told them I was gone a whole month, so had I even taken the test yet? Test. I just stared back at him, spoon still in my mouth, completely lost. Whatever this test was, I'd missed it entirely. Turned out since the tower appeared, people had been flooding in and casualties spiked hard past the second floor. So the Awakened Association locked entry behind a test, pass it, and you got a certification code. But their chairman Han Sang-jin saw the death toll as leverage, a built-in excuse to recruit the strongest survivors into his shadows, and he intended to exploit it for everything it was worth. Fail that test, anything below F rank, and you lost the right to ever set foot past the first floor. Pass with a high rank and the whole nation came calling, guilds lining up to sign you on the spot. So the people who showed up that day fell into two kinds, the desperate and the ones putting on a show. Reporters swarmed the line, cameras chasing anyone begging for decent rank. Then the crowd lost it for real. Park Hana, the girl who'd walked out of Labyrinthos alive, and beside her, her brother Park Hajin, already being called the future of the Crow Guild. Behind them, even Kim Kitty of the Fighting Father Guild showed his face. Off to the side, I caught their guild handler laying down the law, no patience for delays, reporters waiting, he wanted this over fast. He got in close to the siblings. I came all this way for you too, don't embarrass me, you know what happens if you do. Park Hana kept her voice steady, we'll do well. Her brother sounded a lot less sure. Meanwhile, some guy was trying to shove his way up my line, telling me to move or eat a beating. I didn't see why I should, I had my number, I was waiting my turn like everyone else. Turned out the crowd recognized him before I did, Park Hajin. My eye of truth lit up anyway, level 8 critical strike as his exclusive, stealth and shallow breathing rounding out his skills. He caught me sizing him up and snapped, asking what I was staring at. Funny thing about fusion, it only hands me a skill at max friendliness or max hostility. And this guy, shoving me around in front of 100 cameras like I owed him something, had just maxed out the second one. He kept pushing anyway. That's when Park Hana showed up. Appa, what's going? She never finished the question because Park Hajin swung and I caught his fist, one hand, no effort. I watched the confidence drain right out of his face the second he realized he couldn't pull it back, and honestly, I didn't feel like letting him. He called me something ugly. I gave it right back, then let a little of what I'd been sitting on loose. Everyone around us scattered, I'd told them to, and Park Hajin, the pride of the Crow Guild, went down screaming, grabbing at a hand that wasn't there anymore. The crowd didn't even clock what happened, just Park Hajin on the ground, people muttering he'd tripped, twisted his own ankle. Only Park Hana knew better. I watched the color drain out of her face the second she recognized me. Before it could spiral, a broad-shouldered man in a fur collar barked one order, leave it at that, and just like that, everyone backed off. I turned my eye of truth on him anyway. Bad idea, the system flashed a warning and canceled the read outright over a level cap I hadn't even known existed. This man was strong, whoever he was, so I didn't need the skill. I already knew he ran ginseng out to China off the books. His face went white. How do you? Wrong question, I told him. He shut me down fast, activated a skill called Blackout Barrier, sealing us off from every eye in the crowd. My friends caught the flare of it and came running, calling out for me, sure I'd walked into something I couldn't handle. What they didn't know, I'd already found the poison cure his precious ginseng needed, and I was about to use it as bait. His ginseng healed like nothing else until you ate it raw and the poison hit. 3 ingredients kept that from happening, and he only had 2 locked down. I had the third. I'll tell you where to find it, I said, and watched him check my claim against his own guild's intel. It matched, every word. That shook him more than I expected. Who are you? He muttered, more to himself than me. Then out loud, fine, he'd play along, but if I was running a con, he wouldn't let it slide, not over one of his guild's most profitable dungeons. Fire bloomed down his arm as he said it, and before I could answer, he came at me with it already lit. He wanted to know who really held the leverage here, so I showed him, dropped my own power into a single strike, a violet blade cutting straight through his fire like it wasn't even there. He hit the ground gagging, all that guild muscle folded in half by one hit he never saw coming. I turned on the men behind him, back off unless you want to die here. The barrier dropped, the crowd came back into view, and Yon was shoved through first, ready to fight for me. I talked her down, I was fine. Kim Kitty, still on his knees, begged his people not to let us just walk. Whatever he was plotting, it wasn't over. One of Kim Kitty's men lunged at me, screaming he'd go all out. One punch dropped him. I hauled him up and made it plain I wasn't someone he could handle, and if he tried that again, he'd regret it. Outside, Kim Kitty seethed, vowing revenge, but his fire hadn't gone to waste. Fusion had already copied element of fire clean off him. Score settled, next test. While I waited, I clocked another examinee who'd clearly popped ginseng before their turn. Rookie move, but it worked. Then it was my turn. Rules were simple. Any weapon, any ability, strike the stone, and it reads the size of your power. I stepped up with nothing but my old dagger. The examiner asked if I really planned to rely on just my dagger, no exclusive ability. I said it'd do. Then his partner caught which stone they'd handed me, a mid-grade one, and panicked. Most people can't even scratch that. Get him the weak one instead. Too late. It was already primed to its limit, and so was I. I didn't hold back. One strike, blade wreathed in flame, and the magic stone split clean in half. The examiners froze. Most people can't even dent that stone, let alone cut it. The result, S rank confirmed. I asked them to sit on the report for a week. When they hesitated, I reminded them the fist right in front of you is scarier than the law far away. They agreed fast. Then she showed up, Park Hana, the intern I'd bound to me with a contract she couldn't refuse. She held out her hand, Braham's ring, delivered as promised, magic, resistance, speed, the works. I told her I knew she could pull it off. She just glared and begged me to finally remove the mark I'd branded her with. My official rank came back F, temporary until retesting next week. I told the others, who couldn't hide their shock. They split off to search the tower for a dungeon of their own. My path was different. The second test just meant clearing any dungeon on the first floor. Most picked easy goblin or orc caves. I already knew exactly where I was headed. This wasn't my first time walking into the Hall of the Depraved, a ruin nobody alive had ever cleared. This time I slipped in the easy way, not as a hunter, but hauling luggage like a common porter, blending into the crowd headed for the tower's first-floor ruins. Officially, I was still F rank, and F ranks couldn't enter the ruins alone, so I signed on as a porter instead. The other men said they were only there to feed their kids, joking that jobs like this were death flags this deep in. I just told them everyone would make it home safe. One guy welled up, then laughed it off, calling me gutsy for a young guy. The raid quest lit up, clear the ruins boss, seize the throne, pick an artifact reward. Then a second window pinged, meant only for the tower's first conqueror. My luck and adaptive stat jumped 10 points each, and 2 passives unlocked. Cold heart, ice in my veins but less human feeling, and Monopoly, take every reward alone, and I'd walk away with the best one guaranteed. Countless selection rewards exist in this tower. Normally you're thrilled to land one good pull out of 1,000, but with Monopoly running, the odds themselves stopped applying to me. While I savored that, the rest of the attack force teleported in behind me, still groaning from the jump. Someone confirmed the count. All 50 members had made it through safely. Someone bragged about whose magic had pulled off that teleport. Then the crowd buzzed. The new arrivals were the Balhi Guild's main attack force, and one sharp-eyed man in front had to be their captain. I turned my eye of truth on him without a word, reading him before he ever noticed me. Then the order came down, fall in, we're catching up to the advance party. I ran Eye of Truth on Chinhua first thing, decent skills, and a copy condition I really didn't like, earn his trust. Rough ask for a guy leading one of the tower's 30 guild forces, but I filed it away, worth the effort. Then our guide's staff flared to life, lighting our way as the ruins swallowed the light. We caught up to find the ruin torn apart, rubble, monster corpses, the works, ripped straight through, someone said awestruck. Someone else just wanted out, spooked by the mess. But Chinhua wasn't buying the story. Not one person hurt taking down all that. That didn't add up for an advance party, not even close. Chinhua snapped me back to porter duty, water detail. Our foreign guests were Zion Guild, Europe's finest. One looked small, easy to overlook, so I tried some goodwill and handed her a cup. Commune kicked in, she warmed to me just slightly. Then I looked at her face and I knew exactly who she was. Teresa de Laurentia, the Saintess of Amsterdam. Holy power, attack, defense, even healing all in one. She'd single-handedly saved that city from an undead outbreak. That explained the lack of casualties. Nothing kills undead like she does. Made me wonder why they'd skip the third-floor boss for a ruin instead. My Eye of Truth choked on the level gap, but broke through anyway. Got her full status window. Perfect. Status window readout in full. Teresa de Laurentia, level 30. A unique ability ranked among the best in the world. No wonder guilds fought over her. But copying it meant one thing, I'd need to watch her brush death itself. So I had a plan taking shape, put the Saintess in danger, then be the one who pulled her out. I still had to work out how to save her once I did. That part wasn't going to be easy. And before I could even finish the thought, a scream tore through the ruins. Someone was calling for Chinhua. Something had gone wrong. The guards watching over the ruins' guardian were dead, and the reason hit us all at once. The security system had woken up. It only triggers when someone disturbs the guardians that protect this place, and someone just had. A timer dropped onto the air in front of us, 10 minutes. Whatever came next, we didn't have long to survive it. Facing the Guardians with the force we had was suicide, plain and simple. At least half of us wouldn't walk out. The only sane call was to evacuate every non-combat porter within those 10 minutes and run. That was the safe answer. And Chenhua, our attack captain, said it anyway. I can't. I worked my ass off to get to attack captain. I wasn't ending it like this, Chenhua said, and pushed us deeper in instead of pulling back. Half the group balked, no late arriving reinforcements, Guardians closing in from every side, but he wouldn't hear it. We still had a card to play. Teresa, the saintess, was standing right there with us. One of the solo hunters, an archer, blonde and mouthy, got called a coward by a teammate and just laughed it off. Of course, guys like us only follow the captain's orders, and the Balhi guilds probably already cleared the Guardians out anyway. Then something massive rose up right over his head. Huh, was the last thing out of his mouth. A blade came down and Jinty went silent mid-scream, gone before anyone could even move. We're fucked, someone said, and for once nobody argued. Then the order cracked through the group, prepare for combat. The Guardians hit us from every direction at once, and just like that, the fight for our lives had already started. The Guardians hit our line like a tidal wave, and the vanguard scrambled to hold. Tankers forward, porters back, that was the order. Attack Captain Song Chenhua slammed up an iron shield and locked us into wedge formation while Li Yunhua sang a war buff through the ranks. Maintain the formation, they kept screaming. Break it, and we were finished. Then a Guardian strike broke clean through, and someone screamed for the captain. Panic followed panic, tankers begged for backup, for healers, for anything. But the captain just barked to focus on the fight. Casualties were the cost of doing business, and mere solo players weren't worth the guild's concern. We felt it the moment it happened. We'd been abandoned. That's when Teresa de Laurentia stepped in. The Saintess of Amsterdam didn't hesitate. She unleashed her holy blade, sign of the cross, and cut down the Guardians bearing down on us like they were nothing. But it wasn't over. Two more had slipped past the main force entirely, straight toward the non-combatants in the rear. Teresa didn't wait for orders. She was already moving. One of those Guardians cornered an older porter who'd been promised he'd be safe, some promise that turned out to be. He coughed out that he was done for, ready to accept it. I wasn't having that. I cut the Guardian down before its axe finished the swing. What are you saying, Ajasi? I wasn't about to let him die on a technicality. I told him I'd already promised he'd get home safe and reminded him to watch his back as a second Guardian bore down. I called up Element of Fire, the flame skill I'd copied earlier, freshly fused and only level 1. It was enough. The thing didn't stand a chance, though I couldn't finish it outright, not while I had to stay locked at level 1 myself. I told the porter I'd just gotten lucky, dodging the real question, who would deliberately unleash monsters this strong for no visible gain. I knew exactly who benefited. Then Teresa's voice cut through, ice cold, aimed straight at me. I thought you were a kind person, but you held a knife to a non-combatant. You're the one who awakened this dungeon, aren't you? She didn't ask twice. I'm placing you under custody, Teresa said, and came at me full force. I barely had time to think before her blade cracked the air where I'd been standing a second earlier. I wasn't about to let her cuff me for a fight I never started. I put her down fast and held my blade steady at her throat. I'm not the one who awakened the Guardians, I told her. If I were, you'd already be dead. Before she could answer, Kang SSI came running, shouting that I'd saved his life, not attacked her. Teresa backed off, apologizing again and again for jumping to conclusions. Then came the real question. Why was I hiding behind a fake name, Jinhyuk? I told her close enough to the truth. I needed something quietly from this ruin too, same as her covenant of Peter. I offered to team up. Her own people nearly lost it. Teresa shut her subordinates down cold. The map was already memorized. Nothing would fall apart without her, and by their own contract, every captain held equal say until the boss fight. Nobody had an answer for that. She gave me a deadline to be back before the unmapped stretch, and I gave her my word. I asked if I could bring one porter along. Teresa said she didn't care who, just come back. Down among the porters, nobody wanted to be picked. Eye contact meant getting dragged into danger. Then some old man launched into a speech about youth and burning passion, and of all people, Kang SSI raised his hand. The old man's pep talk turned into a full shouting match about love and youth, lightning practically crackling between them, while everyone else just shook their heads, half embarrassed, half nostalgic. Whatever it did to him, it worked. Kang SSI signed on as my porter, and the two of us headed back out to rejoin Teresa. Back with the group, we found exactly what I'd come for, the covenant of Peter. sealed in a sarcophagus behind a barrier only I knew how to bring down. Then the warning hit, a message flashed straight from the ruins boss watching us. Nobody could remember it ever noticing players before, and that alone told me we just made ourselves interesting for all the wrong reasons. Teresa caught the ruins boss staring straight at our group and asked if it had acknowledged us. No, I told her it had acknowledged me. She wanted to know how I planned to clear a dungeon I'd claimed to have beaten before. Honestly, so did I. Teresa's battle song rang out, level 5, every stat on her side spiking for 10 minutes straight. I kept her orders simple. Her job was to pull the entire undead horde's attention off me and onto herself, whatever it cost her. She lit up the ruin with raw divine power, and the undead reeled into confusion, clawing at anything but us. Sacred reinforcement flared gold around her, and just like that, every dead thing in that hall had eyes only for Teresa. The whole horde piled onto her alone, and Teresa held every last one of them off, sword and shield screaming under the weight of it. With the mob locked onto her, I slipped past clean, nobody so much as glanced my way. With the horde busy, my odds of leveling up by accident dropped to nothing, which suited me fine. Then the ruin's real secret finally showed itself, the elite Lich, the hidden death this whole place had been built to hide. Something was off. The Dullahan from my old run had no business being anywhere near here. Bringing Teresa along had changed the pattern, and I filed that away fast. Then the Lich answered with black lightning, a strike strong enough to end veteran hunters outright. That lightning tore through my level 5 magic barrier like it was nothing, and that barrier was supposed to stop almost anything a class 3 threat could throw at me. It didn't. I went down hard, and for 1 second the Lich thought it had me. I climbed back up. Teresa was almost done clearing her side, which meant the Lich had nothing left to hide behind, just bone and dust, all alone with me. It flinched, and that's when a voice belonging to neither of us cut through the ruin. I finally found you. Someone had found me, someone who moved through those monsters like he remembered every one of their attacks. It's been a while, he said. I didn't recognize the face or the voice. I asked him flat out who he was. His answer chilled me. You don't recognize me at all. My eye of truth flared and nullified the level gap, and a status window locked the truth into place. Chun Yusung, level 29, gripping a blade that matched the one stolen from the National Museum of Korea. Then it hit me. This was the guy who'd hunted me down over and over back when the tower was still just a game, that stalker obsessed with proving his blade was better than mine. He wanted this fight fair, no game mechanics holding him back this time. I told him I wouldn't stop him if he really wanted it, just warned he might not like how it ended. When Teresa moved to back me up, that decided it for him. He wasn't sharing this fight with anyone, and he slammed down battlefield selection, sealing the area shut around just the two of us. The seal tore open behind me in a blast of light. I heard Teresa scream Jinhyuk through the gap before it closed for good. She couldn't reach me now, and I couldn't get back to her. I grabbed what I needed, told her I'd see her later, and let the barrier shut. Whatever came next, I was facing it alone. Yusung wasn't done stacking the deck. On top of trapping me in his sealed arena, he activated a skill called one-on-one, 10% added to his own stats, 10% stripped from mine. The system didn't dress it up. I was cornered, weakened, and staring down an overwhelmingly disadvantageous fight before we'd even crossed blades. That's exactly when fusion kicked in. My ability bends its own rules once a fight turns bad enough, and this qualified, permission granted, conditions unmet. I called it. I was copying his unique skill. Song of Swords dropped straight into my hands, total mastery of the blade, sword sense sharpened beyond anything I'd had a second ago. He just handed his own executioner the weapon. I felt my dagger groan under the strain. Chun Yusung wasn't holding back, and he knew it. He mocked me for using sword energy against a supposed swordsmanship beginner, but that beginner label was a lie, and we both knew it. Then he cut loose his full soul chasing sword energy, a wave that could shatter my blade on contact. So I built my own answer, fusing Song of Swords with something called the Demonic Soul Pill. Fusion tore open a new unique ability, Grave of Swords, a soul-deep mastery no ordinary body could hold. The moment I triggered its first skill, Night of the Black Moon, black lightning crawled up my arm. Even at a tenth of its true strength, I could feel the fight already tilting my way. I didn't know it yet, but Yusung had been drowning in this rivalry far longer than I realized. Inside the old game, he died to me again and again. Outside it, he built a wall of photos and notes trying to unravel what made me unbeatable. Somewhere in all that obsession, refusing to accept it, he'd screamed that he couldn't surpass me and never stopped trying. When our blades finally met for real, Grave of Swords didn't just block his attack, it shredded every strand of sword energy he'd thrown at me. Yusung looked at me like I'd broken the rules of reality. All I told him was the truth. I'd sparred against someone faster and stronger than him until it stopped scaring me. One more clean hit put him down for good. I'd won again, though honestly I'd lost count of how many times by now. When I asked, he corrected me. This was the 138th. Beaten and gasping on the ground, all Yusung asked was for me to kill him. I didn't. I told him it'd just be the 139th. The Tower of Trials chews up rankers who let their guard down, and we needed every strong player we could get. The real reason I spared him. Every 60 days I could copy a new skill from the same person, and Yusung would always come back begging for round 2, handing me his power for free. Something shifted after that duel. A skill I'd carried since meeting Park Hana, Commune, kicked in without me even trying, and years of grudge just melted out of Chun Yusung. He relaxed, called me a friend, then asked the one question I couldn't answer honestly, my real name, so I gave him the dumbest fake name I could think of instead. While I settled things with Yusung, trouble was brewing elsewhere in the ruin. An escort team thought they'd swept every monster clear, until an iron golem came stomping back with someone riding it. What climbed down wasn't human, a pale, grinning figure who called himself Bellis, a blood kin of something called the Progenitor, and claimed the whole ruin as his. Bellis laid out his terms plain: follow him without a fight, or he didn't even finish the sentence. Instead, his own blood erupted around him, a skill he called Blood Fist, and one of the escort captains screamed as crimson tore straight through his body. There was no third option. It was surrender or slaughter. Meanwhile, I turned Teresa's own gift back on the ruin. Sacred discernment lit up and pointed me straight to a shard of frozen magic hidden nearby. I drank in 12 points of raw power before Teresa could even ask if I needed help recovering it. 12 was already plenty. Then the ruin's owner spoke straight into my head with a quest: reach the innermost room if I wanted to save the escort team, except, and every monster and trap between here and there would go silent. Park Hana went pale. The whole attack force had been taken hostage. I didn't hesitate. If I could save even one of them, that was reason enough to go. What I only found out later was that while I was resting, a young paladin was tearing herself apart over a choice: whether she still belonged with the attack force, whether becoming a paladin to protect people had even been the right call. Chun Yusung found her there. Much as he resented me, he told her straight, right now, I was the only person alive who could put the Progenitor down. She came to me with a party contract, any price, if I'd help her kill the Progenitor. She wasn't backing down, whatever it cost. I took the deal. The quest locked in, the monsters around us dropped asleep, and a magic circle split open beneath us, spilling out power so thick she froze. I told her there was nothing to fear. She already knew how strong this enemy was. She told me to trust her completely, no matter what I saw next. Then the doors opened on a hall soaked in blood-red light, and there she sat on the throne, Alice von Adraxia, the Progenitor herself, tired of waiting for us. I asked about the escort team. She lifted the spell sealing them off, dimensional severance, and there they were alive, Park Hadjin among them. Turned out I wasn't there for the escort team at all. Alice said she'd summoned me for my scent, sweeter than any blood she'd smelled, and meant to keep me alive as her personal supply for 60 years. I told her I'd pass on being anyone's lunch. She didn't take that well, told me flat out I didn't get a choice in this. Alice made it clear I had no say in this. My blood was hers to take, full stop. I checked on the hostages first, shaken but alive. Then I turned back. I've got something sweeter than my blood, I told her. Someone behind me choked. Jinhyuk SSI, what are you doing? Alice just laughed. Nothing is sweeter to us than delicious blood. Your subterfuge is pointless. Whatever you have to offer, she said, my mind will not change. She had no idea what was coming. Are you sure about that? I asked. Even if my offer to you. I let it hang there because what I was about to say could either buy everyone in that room their freedom or get us all killed on the spot. Is freedom? The word landed like blasphemy in that throne room. Something chained nearby snarled that it would rip me apart for even saying it. Alice's eyes locked on mine. You must take responsibility for what you just said. If I couldn't, I said, I wouldn't have come here in the first place. Then take responsibility. My name, I told her, is Kang Jinhyuk. So I played the only card I had left. As the representative of the demonic humans in the tower, I said, I will free you from this place. It was a bluff dressed up as a promise. I had no idea yet whether I could actually back it up, but backing down wasn't an option anymore. Demonic humans, I explained, were what you got when someone gave up on being human entirely, for revenge, for power out of raw conviction. They blocked tower climbers for years, some even siding with monsters in ruins like this one. Alice wasn't sold. I've heard of your kind, she said, but you're claiming to be one. I'm already in contact with the temple on the 27th floor. You're standing here, you knew how to slip past this ruin's barrier. That's everything they told me, Alice said. Even I wasn't sure how I'd talked my way this far. The escort team stared, stunned I was suddenly posing as a demonic human. You clearly know of the temple, your words aren't empty, she admitted. Then trust me, no, you're too smooth a talker for that. Alice didn't buy a word of it. Blood spears tore to life around her, dozens of them, her eyes gone ice cold. You have such sweet-smelling blood, she said. It's truly unfortunate. Then just one word, die, she meant it. The spears came down like a red curtain, and that's when someone slammed between us, shield blazing. Teresa de Laurentia, the saintess who'd once saved Amsterdam, threw herself in front of a vampire lord's wrath. Jinhyuk SSI, stay behind me, she screamed, and I froze. I'll hold as long as I can with divine power, she swore, her sacred shield roaring under the barrage. Alice just laughed funny, going all out against so little, though divine power made her sick. Then came blood explosion. Teresa doubted she'd last, but chose to trust me anyway. The hit landed hard. Teresa coughed, staggering, calling my name like she couldn't believe what I'd just let happen, but it was the only way. I turned to Alice and asked straight, if I prove this isn't a bluff, will you trust me? Impressive, she said, to betray the comrade who just shielded you. Prove it more. Was this your plan? Alice asked, watching the mark on my neck flare violet. I didn't answer with words. I just drew my blade, the steel screaming as it caught the light, and let that speak for me instead. Alice threw her head back, laughing. Impressive for a human. She bought it. You're on my side, she said, and finally gave me a chance to talk. Here was the real plan, a 7th-tier spell, sealing Alice's own soul inside Braham's ring, just long enough to fool the barrier and set her free. She asked me straight up, seal her soul. She'd never even heard of such a thing. Truth was, I'd kept myself frozen at level 1 for years, caused the 7-star skill soul transfer only unlocks there. The second I qualified, the spell lit up, 1 soul at a time, a full year before I could cast it again. The circle would vanish in a minute if she refused. Alice hesitated. Her own guard, Bellis, had already told her to kill me the moment I twitched wrong. 1,000 years locked in that palace, and now she was staring at a stranger, asking for her trust one last time. I held out my hand. I will not let you regret it. I, Alice von Adraksia, allow the soul transfer, she said, and Braham's ring drank her power down. For a second I felt her settle in, almost cozy, like she'd found a new home. No time to sit with that, though. I turned around and Teresa was already falling, blood pooling under her hand, her armor crashing toward me in that blood-lit hall. Welcome back, I caught her before she hit the floor. Sealing Alice's soul had handed me something new, blessing of the star, a one-time revival, as long as the killing blow wasn't instant, cooldown 240 hours. I said her name, Teresa SSI, and she blinked up at me alive, flashing a wild, fang-bearing grin like she couldn't believe it either. The moment Alice's soul locked away in Braham's ring, her loyalists smelled the lie. Teresa was breathing again, thank the stars, but before I could enjoy it, Bellis, Alice's guard, rounded on me. You dare disrespect our master. Ingrate, liar, dirty trick. Didn't matter what they called me. They wanted me dead for it. Bellis screamed betrayal and unleashed a blood wave that could have swallowed the room whole, so I met it with fire, my coppered flame tearing straight through his crimson tide. With the vampire distracted, I sent Teresa to the hostages. She lit up the dark with sign of the cross and got everyone out, relief playing on their faces, even as they asked about the vampires still loose. While the others fell back, I stayed to finish it alone. Bellis sneered, how could a mere human match his magic? I told him the truth. Fire beats blood, and the second Alice's soul went into that ring, he'd already lost. I called up Grave of Swords. He roared back with dark fighting spirit, swearing if magic couldn't kill me, steel would. Destroy the ring, free our master, that was Bellis's last order, and the whole pack surged at me together, trying to smash the one thing sealing Alice's soul away. I cut through them clean, but something in that final clash made me freeze and call out for Teresa, my gut telling me the fight wasn't as finished as it looked. The other hunters stared at the wreckage and whispered about the masked stranger who'd done all that. Teresa just shrugged them off, said she barely knew me herself, which suited me fine. Walking away, I couldn't help laughing about it. That fight actually killed me once, and by an ally's hand no less. Still, we'd pulled it off. We really had. Teresa thanked me for saving everyone, and right then the system caught up with what I'd actually done. By pulling her back from death, I'd fulfilled the hidden condition to copy her own unique ability. Blessing of the star, divine power that could drag me back from the edge of death myself once every 10 days. I hadn't expected the tears. Teresa asked why I was crying. I couldn't say. I brushed it off, just glad she was alive, and we started gathering the ruins relics to leave. That's when Song Chunhua, the attack force captain, came running. Every item from this raid, he announced, belonged to the Balhi Guild. I reminded him I'd just saved his neck and now he wanted the loot too. He backpedaled fast, offering coin instead. The nerve of the man, really. Chunhua tossed it at my feet. Take it if you want it that badly. That's how I ended up holding the fragment of Merlin's staff, a relic torn straight from Alice's ruin. The second my fingers closed around it, my arm went numb and pain shot clean through me. What's this? Turned out the shard was cursed, a divine artifact you're only supposed to loot by killing Alice von Adrexia herself. Funny thing, Alice was very much alive, sealed safe inside my ring. While I choked that curse down, word was already spreading. Even the brass at the Tower of Trials entrance were arguing over whether the report out of the ruin could possibly be true. I heard later the Awakened Association nearly sat on the whole thing, department head Kim Ti-chun telling Deputy Jung Yi-hyun to just wait it out, experts predicting 3 weeks before anyone confirmed anything. Then the notification hit every screen at once. The ruin, Hall of the Depraved, cleared. Nobody in that building believed it. The Balhi Guild survivors stumbled out into a wall of cameras and cheering, and the reporters wanted one name: who was the MVP of that raid. Every eye landed on their attack force captain instead, and what they found wasn't a hero's face. His hair, his eyebrows, his eyelashes, all burned clean off. For a second the crowd was sure it was Teresa de Laurentia, the saintess of Amsterdam, and asked if the Zion Guild had pulled it off too. No, the captain pointed straight at me instead. One masked man alone cleared that ruin, his whole guild just spectators to my stage performance. Word of that climbed straight to the association. I never saw what came after, but I heard how it landed on the survivors, hollow-eyed, bandaged, muttering that they'd actually made it out alive. If it hadn't been for that masked stranger, one of them said, they wouldn't be walking home right now. So that's exactly what they did, just went home. Back home, I scrolled past my own headline, "Who's the Masked Player?" Grateful I'd worn that mask, since Teresa alone knew my face and had promised to keep it quiet. Problem solved, until Alice popped out of my ring, furious about being stuffed in what she called a dark, smelly pocket all day, demanding to know if I even knew who she was. Alice lashed out at me, whip fast and furious, and I barely bothered to dodge it. I just grabbed the chain loop through her collar and gave it a lazy tug. "Feel better now?" I asked. She screamed that vampires never forgot a grudge. I just ordered her flat out to relax her expression, and she had no choice but to obey. I fed a sliver of bound magic back into Braham's ring, and her fury dissolved into pure agony, 3 hours of it by my count. When she finally crawled out again, sobbing, she swore she'd repay every ounce of humiliation 1,000 times over. Then she froze. Someone else had just seen her manifest. Turned out only a fragment of her had come through, a mini Alice von Adrexia, capped under 1% of her true strength. Still monstrous next to an ordinary vampire, just leashed. She curled up and spat that she'd never asked for this kind of freedom. I told her to stop crying and listen. I hadn't been bluffing back at the ruin. I laid out the deal: help me, and I'd wipe out everyone who'd betrayed her, and hand back everything the Adrexia family had lost. She just stared, stunned anyone would offer her that. Meanwhile, my solo clear had already gone public. A new upload hit the Hall of Fame, and the internet was losing its mind over the masked stranger. Nobody could identify me. The comments kept stacking up: subscriptions, guild recruitment theories, fans replaying the ruin footage on loop. I scrolled through it walking home, half convinced it was noise, until it clicked. I had heard the big guilds were sitting on mountains of cash. Looking up at their tower downtown, I realized, yeah, that part was true. Whether some guild wanted to monopolize the whole industry, corrupt or not my problem, but sending people to kill me that I couldn't let slide. I walked straight past their security, fire already building in my palm. For guys like this, there was only one answer: I was going to burn it all down. Turned out the guild leader, Shin Jinsu of the Black Crow Guild, was busy stomping one of his own men for botching a quiet hit and dragging their name through the mud instead. He never got to finish. I lit up the top floor and sent his whole staff flying through fire and glass. Jinsu landed in the wreckage and recognized me instantly, the man who'd humiliated his guild at the association. Before I could answer, he drew steel and activated Quick Sword, some hired blade rushing in behind him, hoping to score points with his boss. I just smiled. Neither of them needed to worry about that anymore. Shin Jinsu came at me faster than sound itself, his quick sword, he called it, screaming that I wasn't even paying attention. Maybe I wasn't. He swore I'd die for the insult, and his blade came down like judgment. I let it come. Turned out the board game he'd smashed through gave me exactly what I needed. I flicked a stone go piece into the path of his sword, stopping it cold. He stared at it like it had personally offended him. I just sipped my drink and asked if we could get back to our conversation, Shin Jinsu. Then he said a name, Kang Jinhyuk, like it explained everything, and asked if this was revenge for a hit he'd ordered. I didn't correct him. I just kept ripping his tower apart until he was the one begging me to stop and take it easy. He tried a different threat. Over 50 of his top rankers were away clearing towers, and if I killed him here, they'd hunt me to the ends of the earth. He wanted me scared straight. Blood calls for blood, he warned, and once revenge starts, nobody forgives, so the killing never really stops. Funny hearing that logic from the man who put a hit on me. If revenge never truly ends, then fine, I'd be the one to finish it, so nobody else had to carry it forward. He barely got out a confused wait before element of fire lit up the room and ended the argument. When the smoke cleared, I found Park Hajin, Park Hana's older brother, broken on the floor, and told him straight the only reason he was still breathing was his sister. I warned him to stay out of my sight until he died naturally, then turned to leave until I spotted one more body playing dead a little too well. Turned out he wasn't dead at all. Kim Hee-woong, 26, the guild's old business manager, scrambled up and sold himself hard, Stanford educated, ready to run anything I needed. I liked that. Destroying a top guild outright would have been wasteful, so I made him the new puppet guild master, just enough to keep up appearances, no real followers required. An emergency summons hit every Black Crow Guild phone at once. All A-rank players, drop everything, gather now. They grumbled the whole way over, cursing whoever dragged them out of a raid for this. None of them had any idea their day was about to get so much worse. They found their guild master smashed into a car, dead on impact. While the rest of them were still screaming about who'd sent the summons, the answer was already sitting behind the guild master's desk, Kim Hee-woong, demanding a full report without a single detail left out. I left Alice to handle new arrivals at the association so I wouldn't have to babysit every intake myself. She hated the job as it was, and hated it a lot more the moment some official looked at the progenitor herself and called her a child. Sure enough, something blew sky high right where that man had been standing. 2 months had passed since the tower first appeared, and the world was adapting fast. The news couldn't stop talking about a masked player who'd solo cleared a ruin an entire attack force couldn't touch. Only a porter, Mr. Kim, and I knew who was really under that mask. Teresa kept my secret too, which left me juggling 2 lives, one behind a mask, one without. Pulling it on again, I finally had every loose end tied off, every condition met, clear to walk into the awakened association as whichever version of myself I needed to be. There was nothing left holding me back, no debts, no threats, no restraints. When those doors opened into the light, I wasn't walking out as some grinder anymore. It was finally my turn to take everything for myself. I registered with the association under an old gaming name, Kang Jinhyuk, rank F, a certificate plain enough that nobody would look twice. I'd barely looked up from my phone before I heard it, Jinhyuk Appa. Yu Yeonwoo and Lee Timan, my old raid partners, come to tell me they'd leveled up too, with people in tow who already seemed to know my name. Kim Hee-woong stepped up as my inside man, the man I'd propped up as the Black Crow Guild's puppet master after that bastard Shin Jinsu went down. He swore he'd back Kang Jinhyuk without question, repaying the favor. Around us, old faces reunited, laughing like nothing had changed. Alice just watched from the edge, still working out where she fit. Turned out Alice wasn't exactly house-trained. Someone called her a kid and she leveled a building for it, no regrets, thousands of years of pride still raw. Before I could finish scolding her, she cut me off. We were going hunting, and since she couldn't solo a horde alone, I was drafted as her supporter. Officially, there was nowhere left to hunt. Every good ground stayed locked down until someone finally cracked the 3rd floor's boss. Everyone believed that. I didn't count myself in everyone. I took Alice to Moon Lake, the 1st floor's postcard pretty ruined people used to visit just to stare at. Now, with humanity fighting to survive, nobody bothered anymore. Alice couldn't figure my angle, half joking that at least wading into the lake wouldn't soak my pants. I ignored her and counted the 12 statues ringing the water. One of them wasn't just decoration. It was hiding something else entirely, and I doubted a single soul who'd walked past it in years had ever noticed. No key of metal could open that groove because the key was never metal, it was moonlight itself. I cupped my palm over the beam, dimming and widening it to match the sequence carved into the stone beneath. Get it wrong, nothing happens. Get it right, and after a few careful tries, a door nobody alive knew existed cracked open under the ruins. We dropped into a hidden level of the Tower of Trials, one the system itself barely acknowledged. Alice went quiet the moment we stepped in, reaching toward the dark like she recognized it. This feeling, this freedom, she said she'd nearly forgotten it. Then she turned that smug look on me. Aren't you glad you made a contract with me? Fine, she hadn't been talking completely out of her ass. I cracked open the frozen tier again and the system logged it. Mana up 18, 70 absorption still banked, next dose in a day. Each one made Alice's soul easier to hold. Got me wondering, the tower's monsters knew this was once just a game. Would someone who'd lived thousands of real years like Alice believe the same? So I asked her outright. Her answer came back as noise, a violent glitch ripping through her voice, blocking whatever she meant to say. So that's how it is. Real information about the tower gets shut down cold. But just confirming I couldn't ask its own beings directly told me enough. Then Alice went rigid. Something's coming, she said, and I heard it too. I called that hidden level below Moon Lake a spawning ground, and for good reason. Monsters clawed straight up out of the abyss down there, endless and hungry. So I answered with fire, wave after blazing wave, because the things just kept coming and coming and coming. Then something uglier crawled out of the dark, a giant beetle, level 25, all shell and mandibles. Alice gagged at the sight of it. I told her to get back. This one I was handling myself. This time I wasn't doing it alone. I told Alice to show me what she was made of. She sneered, said a noble like her didn't fight insects, so I asked her what noble. That got under her skin fast. Furious, she gave in, and her own blood sealed something new. Bloodbind. Bloodbind locked into place perfect. My hidden stat rift kicked in, shaving 33 levels off the gap between us and them. Level up, level up, level up. Truth was, I'd been sick of holding myself back at level 1 for way too long. I called up Grave of Swords and grinned, don't stop coming at me. What I only found out later, while I was down there burning through bugs, the guild world was already in crisis. Inside Olympus Guild's conference room, Titan Guild's representative, Patrick, opened the meeting with the news nobody wanted. The 8th raid on the 4th floor had just failed. Of the 1,500 hunters sent up, only 9 came back. The 3rd floor's boss wasn't even the real threat, it was the 100,000 statues he commanded. Blame flew fast, guilds accusing each other of hoarding crystals and starving new climbers of the growth they needed, until someone finally snapped, stop it. While I was still underground trading blows with Alice, the guild war council above me was falling apart. Overnight, word had reached them. The demonic humans would help fight the tower for a price. One guild executive shut the offer down cold, snapping she'd rather die than deal with wanted criminals. Her contempt didn't land well with the wrong people. A guild leader named Baek Jinho charged the demonic humans negotiator and got hurled back like nothing. Since you showed yourself to me, the stranger sneered, I'll kill you. Then came the real pitch, join forces, and the 3rd floor's boss falls. Baek scoffed at their numbers, so the ground answered for them, and a buried army clawed its way up. That army wasn't just necromancy, it was necromancy paired with the Staff of Greed, a legendary relic built from 99 rare materials, and together they actually gave the 3rd floor's boss a real shot at falling. The guild leaders wanted to rip the stranger apart on principle, but a condition the public would never hear about was tempting enough that even hot-headed Baek Jinho admitted they were out of options. One of them said what everyone was thinking, none of this would have happened if Jinhyuk were still here, and right on cue, like the tower itself was listening, a call came through. The caller ID read Kang Jinhyuk. A call came through from outside, and when I answered, every guild rep in that meeting went dead silent. I'd cleared the 1st floor ruin nobody else could touch, and for weeks they'd been trying to reach the ghost behind it. Now here I was, dropped right into their crisis. I watched the greed spread across their faces like a fever. One of them, the necromancer with his stolen staff, sneered that I couldn't solo the raid with cheap summons. So I called his bluff, pointed out his Staff of Greed was cobbled from a saint's heart and a prison uniform soaked in oil, nothing close to the real thing. While the room reeled, I lifted the coins and gear right off him. He stormed out, promising I'd regret it. I told them to leave it to me, I'd clear the tower myself and spare them from ever needing the demonic humans. When Baek Jinho tried throwing money and favors at me, I turned him down flat. All I wanted was the area sealed off and not one coin of the reward. That's when she asked the question I didn't have a real answer for. Why was I doing this for them at all? So I gave them one. I was just doing right by the comrades I cared about. Watching them eat it up, near tears over my loyalty, I nearly laughed at my own performance. That footage was worth more than any down payment. The call ended and my status window lit up, level 12, less than a day in, moving faster than I'd expected. That's when someone shouted my name from behind me. Alice told me the slave contract complaint was hurting her feelings. This was a partnership, then sank her teeth into my neck before I could argue, drinking her fill for mana. Full tank, sure, but she used it to go on a shopping spree, a mutation pill, sticky spider silk, ogre snot, swearing every useless item had its purpose. Alice said we had to clear the underground first floor by day's end, then jumped into a black chasm with me in tow, catching our fall with reverse gravity. She'd made that leap 100 times, she knew how deep it went. Mid-drop, she went still and murmured a name that wasn't mine, Jinhyuk. In the ruins, I lit a brazier and said I knew what was coming. Insects like that were nothing to me, the real fight was still hiding. I called it out, why don't you show yourself? Then it did, a towering guardian shaped like a jackal-headed god, ancient and massive. It seemed almost pleased I recognized it. I did, everyone did, the hound who roams the desert, Anubis. Anubis laughed, first hunter brave enough to die by his own hand, he said. I hadn't come to chat. Alice tried to step between us, said she'd handle him. I told her to watch. Then his real weapon woke, Judgment of Anubis, a doll bound to answer 3 questions with total truth. I saw my way in, where his patience down, and that power was mine to take. Anubis grilled me with 3 questions I couldn't lie through: how I'd found this place, whether I'd come to steal, whether I actually thought I could walk out of his territory alive. I answered straight, almost bored. Turned out that was exactly what the ritual wanted, because the moment I finished, the conditions were fulfilled. Judgment of Anubis kicked in, my stats slashed by half, every skill and unique ability locked for a full minute. Fair fight, my ass. Anubis didn't even step in himself. He summoned a proxy, a monstrous giant mantis, and let it loose to judge me in his place. Half strength, no skills, staring down something built to butcher me, so I pulled out my real weapon, a mini phonograph. One song, impossible to stop once started, timed exactly to the mantis' attack patterns, cracked after thousands of trials. I hit play and let the music do the talking. I moved to the beat, dodging every strike like I was conducting an orchestra instead of fighting for my life, timed so perfectly it scared the thing more than any blade could have. Then the clock ran out, my powers roared back, and I answered with Grave of Swords. Problem was, the mantis regenerated instantly. I couldn't just kill it, not like this. So I stopped trying to end it and started trying to break it, hunting for the one thing that would make it want to die. Somewhere far off, people watching realized exactly what they were looking at. A creature handpicked by a god carries its pride like armor, so I didn't finish it with a blow. I finished it with humiliation, one crouched, contemptuous gesture that said everything. That was the real killing strike. The warrior Anubis had chosen simply collapsed where it stood. It had killed itself rather than live with the loss. My level jumped, and in the wreckage I found a grimoire. Cracking it gave me ice magic, a new skill, ice formation. Anubis admitted I wasn't ordinary, then dared me to fight him. I told him he couldn't even show up. He was backseating this from the 42nd floor. Turned out I was right, only his consciousness was projected down here. He wanted a reason for the disrespect, so I gave him the honest one because it was fun. That answer broke something in him. Furious, he unleashed the hive, an ancient nest that would keep spitting out giant insects until one of us stopped standing. I threw everything into it, element of fire and ice formation, fire and ice colliding right in my own hand. I guess this won't even make a dent, I muttered, watching the swarm keep coming. But I wasn't fusing them for a dent, I was building something new. The fusion held, then it screamed to life. The system pinged, fusion succeeded. I'd just earned a new skill, Daylight. I turned it loose on the insects closing in on me, and for one heartbeat, everything went white. Daylight tore through the first wave clean. Insects that should have kept coming just didn't. Anubis, the guardian who'd unleashed this whole hive on me, went quiet for a second, then admitted it. Looks like I need a change of plan. That should have worried me more than it did. Anubis's plan was something called subject selection, feeding his own hive back into itself. Something in there answered. A shape rose out of the swarm, plated and glowing, eyes burning like coals. Not a bug anymore. A reinforced killer, built specifically to end me. I hit it with ice formation, full power. Nothing. It's useless, I said, and I meant it. Every insect I cut down just came right back, faster, hungrier. like I was fighting the exact same wave over and over. Then the system dropped the real problem on me, a gigantification pill, already working, 1 minute on the clock. Whatever was in front of me wasn't staying bug-sized. It was about to become something I couldn't outcut, only outthink. Anubis panicked. "What are you? Kill him this instant." Because this thing didn't die, it just multiplied forever, and that alone was enough to break most people's will to fight, not mine. I burned through my rarest catalysts to reinforce something called Unknown Cube, betting that if I stayed calm long enough, I could find the pattern hiding inside an infinite loop. I stopped trying to outfight the loop and started changing the terms of it. I threw everything into Element of Fire, level 5, and let it slam into my ice. The plated thing screamed as flame ate through its shell. I'd finally found the crack in Anubis's supposedly perfect machine. Breaking one of them broke the pattern for all of them. Gigantification pills started raining out of every kill, 2, then 9, then more. I needed those pills to face whatever was commanding this army, and the swarm was handing me the best experience and copies I'd ever farmed. Anubis just stood there stammering, watching his trap turn into my buffet. Anubis muttered "damn it" and did what I couldn't, crushed his own hive with one fist. The system pinged. Anubis had destroyed it himself. Honestly, I was disappointed. I'd been enjoying the show. He roared that I'd disrespected him over and over and warned me to stay alive and come find him at the tomb. I told him he didn't need to scream. I was already going, and I'd never actually disrespected him. Then his vessel shattered, the condition was met, and I walked away with a new ability, Judgment of Anubis. The system warned me that ability only worked once per person, abuse it, and I'd earn the wrath of actual Egyptian gods. Sure enough, I felt a few of them turn hostile toward me already. Typical, I thought, the gods here are so narrow-minded. Alice swooped down asking what had happened. I just kept walking. What do you think? I won. I pulled up the old record for Kang Jinhyuk, one of the 4 legends who used to top this tower, just to see how far I still had to climb. Then my phone rang. I waved Alice off and picked up. It was Chun Yu-sung calling with a proposal. The Awakened Association was holding a martial arts tournament in 24 hours for AA-ranked climbers and up, tied straight to the mess on the 3rd floor, and he wanted one more fight with me in it. I turned him down flat. I wasn't wasting my time unless he had skills actually worth copying. Chun Yu-sung just smiled and told me I wouldn't be able to refuse. Then he held up the reason why, a black market ticket. While I turned Chun Yu-sung's mention of a black market over in my head, a private auction, cash-only, hand-picked members, exactly where a man hunting 3rd-floor gear wanted to be. My own footage was already tearing up the internet. I'd scrubbed out the demonic human and Teresa, kept just the fight, and posted it under one name, Unknown. It exploded. Nobody had ever announced a solo clear of a dungeon every major guild had already choked on. Of course it went viral. Overnight, the whole country was asking the same question I was dodging: who exactly was hiding behind that mask? 50 million views bought me a small fortune in coin, cut, and all. While I was still red-faced from the comments, the association announced something bigger. A live, unedited martial arts tournament meant to rebuild trust after the guild's 3rd-floor disasters. Then Chun Yu-sung cornered me, agreed to fight, and the black market ticket was mine. One problem: I wasn't ranked A. I couldn't enter. Turned out that didn't matter. Whoever won the tournament got to choose relics looted from the National Museum of Korea, or the right to name any player as a personal opponent, ranked, unranked, tournament, or not. Chun Yu-sung wasn't inviting me to compete. He was planning to drag me into the ring whether I qualified or not. I had a bad feeling about this. Everyone would be watching. Still, I told myself I'd win. The tournament opened under the Sword Saint's proposal, and the first match showed exactly how serious it was. One fighter mocked his opponent as a has-been, then got torn apart by a wave of dark energy before he could take it back. Watching from a private box, Black Cloud Guild's S-rank director Hong Deokpyo barely blinked through the bloodshed, until one fighter's control and composure caught his eye enough to offer a guild invitation on the spot, the first refusal he'd ever gotten. Nearby, his own S-rank member Young Do-hyun sulked that he could flatten the whole bracket and made Chun Yu-sung kneel himself, if only they'd let him fight. Do-hyun's guild saw a future S-rank in him, great for their name if only he'd stop bragging. Back in the ring, another match ended fast and brutal, and the crowd erupted. We had a winner, Chun Yu-sung. Somebody joked he wasn't much to look at, but nobody was laughing about how he'd just won. Word moved through the crowd instantly. The winner got to name his own opponent. Whispers turned to bets, some big shot, maybe a guildmaster. Nobody in that stadium had any idea Chun Yusung already knew exactly whose name he was about to call. Chun Yusung's win bought him the right to name any opponent, and the crowd buzzed guessing who he'd pick. He stood there taunting into the stands, daring someone to come out. Young Do-hyun, itching for the spotlight, jumped up assuming it was him, but Chun Yusung waved him off. His sword wasn't pointed at the ranked seats at all. It was aimed at someone hiding in the crowd, someone who apparently knew a thing or two about ambushes. The database flagged me under my cover as a flat F-rank nobody, and the stands lost it. Why would an S-rank champion call out a nobody? Chun Yusung remembered exactly how much I'd grown since our last fight. I told him straight I hadn't stopped training for a second, so if he wanted that ticket, he'd better bring everything. He unleashed its soul-chasing sword energy, second movement, a column of blue fire he called down like an inferno emperor. I didn't flinch. Bring it on, I told him. He came in screaming that I was a stalker, and the whole arena lit up blue around us. His sword art hit like a storm, but I'd survived worse. When I answered back with an ice missile, then a beam that tore straight through the ceiling, Chun Yusung couldn't keep track. How many skills did I even have? He shouted, stunned. He went down. I picked myself up, ticket in hand, already thinking about how I'd put it to use. The crowd was still losing their minds over that ice missile and the beam that tore the roof open. Was he even human? Someone asked. Up in the stands, I ran into familiar faces. Min Young-ho and Yuri, both from the Museum Chaos, both offering peace instead of trouble. Our first meeting had been ugly, but neither of us wanted to stay enemies. Then came the ask, dressed up polite, do me a favor. I could have refused, he even said so, but the screenshot he showed me made it clear this wasn't really a request, it was a threat wearing a favor's face. I said yes anyway. Then the next fight rolled around, and the crowd was already howling in disbelief at what an F-ranker had just pulled off. A big guy strolled up laughing that he never expected a show like this. My system flagged him instantly. Young Jun-ho, level 29, a superhuman with Giant's Clutch and a passive called Contempt for the Weak. Then a prompt. He'd approached with a scheme, figure it out, and I'd copy his skill. Don't glare, he said. I didn't come here to fight. Then what did he want? Young Jun-ho stuck his hand out like we were old friends, playing colleague for the cameras. My eye of truth caught the lie instantly. He wanted my win, my spotlight, all for himself. But he'd made one mistake. He touched me. The second our palms met, fusion triggered, and I walked away owning his Giant's Clutch. He asked if I really thought strength alone could beat him, then answered for me, crushing my hand with Giant's Clutch to prove his point. Wrong move. I answered with Judgment of Anubis, and just like that, he couldn't move an inch. He hadn't done his homework on who he was shaking hands with. He laughed it off, mocking me for making such a show of pain, then went dirty and snuck an attack in while I had him frozen. I called it exactly what it was. Then I answered back with ice and lightning of my own, and he stopped laughing pretty fast. One clean hit sent him spinning through the air, screaming, but even as he went down, I felt someone else step into the fight behind him. I turned my eye of truth his way too, because something told me this wasn't over yet. He made it personal, screaming that I'd made a joke out of Do-hyun, out of everything he'd bled for. My eye of truth read him instantly. Hong Deokpyo, guild director, pride wounded and hunting for payback. I offered him a way out. He answered by unleashing his unique ability, Blood Demon, instead. I answered with everything I had: daylight, the fire and ice fusion I'd built myself, flooding the field in blinding white. Everyone around us went blind on the spot, but even as I blinked through the glare, the system credited the strike to a name that wasn't supposed to be mine. I remembered fighting Solomon, the boss guarding the tower's second floor, back when I was the lone vanguard of that raid. My hidden stat, Rift, kicked in and chewed 33 levels off the gap between us. He roared that it was impossible I'd survived his blood kai, so I told him to stop and made him listen. That memory hit me right there in the middle of the tournament. Everyone was watching. Then the crowd parted. Association President Han Sang-jin stormed in, power crackling in his fist, and barked one command that froze the whole arena: all of you. Han Sang-jin looked ready to tear into me for wrecking a guild rep, until he caught himself and waved it off as normal tournament roughness. He introduced himself properly, head of Korea's awakened association, here because he'd gotten an urgent call and rushed straight over. What he didn't say out loud was that we'd already met. He'd once dug into a rigged assessment test on my behalf, exposed the pressured examiner, and personally congratulated me, Kang Jin-hyuk, the name I'm registered under with the association, as Korea's 16th S-rank, with a formal apology for the botched grade. Word got out fast, reporters mobbed me, and across town a guild boss went pale, realizing his secret plan to solo the third floor was about to spill on camera. Back in the ring, Hong Diokpyo's arrogance finally tripped his own condition. The system pinged, and I walked away with his unique ability, Blood Demon Kai. Being Korea's newest S-rank had perks. The forums were buzzing, and when word got around I might swing through Las Vegas, the association scrambled to smooth things over with a private plane. Then mid-meal, someone pulled up a chair I hadn't invited. I was enjoying my first taste of first class, savoring a drink like I'd earned it, and I had. Then Alice buzzed in my head. The man across from me reeked of blood, and she didn't like it one bit. My eye of truth flickered on and named him Alex Judrow, a necromancer wielding something called Contract of the Dead, a demonic human smiling like nothing was wrong. He introduced himself as Alex Judrow, recognizing me instantly from the S-rank announcement and the tournament broadcast. No way he'd landed next to me by accident. Over a glass of cognac he talked up his cosmetics business, booming ever since the Tower of Trials appeared, all charm and easy stories. But charm like that always hides something, and sure enough, he admitted there was a slight problem. That problem was unknown, the masked climber blocking every guild from the third floor boss, supposedly to protect a comrade. I played dumb about knowing him. Alex wasn't buying it, called me out for lying to his face with a grin, then made his pitch, join his raid. As a fresh S-rank, nobody would dare touch me, and I'd still walk away with loot even from a solo clear. I turned him down. I'd just become S-rank, and going up against the big guilds wasn't something I was ready to gamble on. Alex just smiled wider. I'm an entrepreneur, he said, and pulled out his real offer, a legendary elixir, one said to cure any disease and even mend a ruined heart. That got my attention. He'd hand it over as an advance, he said, if I signed his contract, and I felt his unique skill activate, Contract of the Dead. Break it and death comes for you. I turned him down flat. Alex just shrugged, disappointed but unbothered, and went back to his meal like the offer had never happened. Something told me this wasn't over. Alex demanded to know what I was doing right as I cracked open a vial and let my mana surge, purple light crawling up my arm in the cramped cabin. I told him straight, I might be the cautious type, but I'm also the greedy type. I take everything I want. His question died in his throat. The whole cabin panicked, chalking my shockwave up to turbulence, a lie I let stand. Heading back to my seat, Alex finally asked it straight. Had I known who he really worked for from the start, I didn't deny it. I'd had a rough idea all along. He was just good at playing it cool. Alex played his last card, warning me unknown himself would make me pay for this. I called it a lie outright. Watching him panic over how I could possibly know that told me everything. I even teased that I might trade him real information if he behaved. Then we landed and parted ways. Back on solid ground, I brought Alice into a real human city, her reward for sniffing out Alex. Keeping her manifested was draining my mana, so I fused Eye of Truth with Blood Demon Kai into something sharper. Then I called out to my contractor, and when she pointed at a flashy casino, I shut it down. We hadn't come to play. Sure, I could have just taken what I wanted by force, but robbing ordinary people who'd earned their money honestly crossed a line I wasn't willing to cross. So when Alice asked where we were actually headed, I told her, somewhere nothing like that casino. We ended up at a private gambling house called Tortuga, Alice grumbling that she liked the flashier building better. The moment we walked into Tortuga, a drunk gambler was already losing it, screaming that he'd seen some bastard cheat him using real skills, no trick about it. I threw back that I'd lost money to skills myself and hadn't cried about it, and that was apparently the wrong thing to say, because he came at me swinging. The gambler's fist never had a chance to land. I wasn't about to let some drunk cheat swing at me for calling him out. In this place, I told him the one who gets scammed is the dumbass. Alice just shrugged it off. Then her eyes lit up at the noise and lights around us. I explained why Tortuga was different here. You could use magic freely. I settled in at Tortuga's tables, picking up some local currency while the staff kept Alice entertained at the bar. Quietly, I activated a level 3 skill, Source Seal, locking one item away from every other skill's reach for 10 minutes, though mine still worked on it just fine. Then I sat down across from the dealer, Pedro, hand already looking solid. I raised anyway. This round was going to decide everything, and I meant to finish it right here. Chips piled higher, jaws dropped around the table, and $5 million sat stacked in front of me. I pushed it all in without blinking. While the pot climbed, I wondered who ran this place. Clearly some guild's cash was behind it. Then my opponent got twitchy, firing oddly specific questions like he was fishing in my head. He wasn't reading me, he was about to cheat, swapping his cards mid-flip with a skill called strange gestures. He flipped, still a pair of jacks. He couldn't explain why it hadn't worked. He panicked, insisting he'd switched his hand. Impossible, as far as he was concerned. I just grinned and laid mine down, a pair of kings, enough to win by a hair. The real trick wasn't luck, it was my newly fused eye of gluttony, and its mind-reading edge had already told me exactly what he was about to try. I reached for my winnings and got stopped cold. Guild muscle closed in, accused me of using some unnamed skill to rob the house, and decided that made me worth dragging into a back room instead of paying out. One of them grabbed me, then froze. Something in what I just said had clicked. He'd heard about me before, somewhere outside these walls. I let a little power show, just enough to answer the question hanging in the air. That's right, I said. In this place, the one who gets scammed is the dumbass, and whoever he thought he recognized. He was about to find out exactly how right he was. They wanted to teach me a lesson for winning clean, so they hauled me into a back room to do it in private. Bad move. I put grown men into the floor without breaking a sweat, and by the time I was done, the whispers had already started. Nobody goes berserk like that on their own, not without backup. They just didn't know I didn't need any. Then their tone flipped in an instant. Someone's phone came out, a photo got flashed around, and the color drained from every face in the room. They just realized who I actually was. Kang Jin-hyuk, one of the handful of S-ranks the country produces in years. Suddenly it was all bows and apologies. Funny how manners only show up once people are scared. I wasn't in a forgiving mood. $10 million, I told them, compensation for scaring me and for trying to stiff me after I'd won fair and square. The transfer landed in seconds. A car came to collect me not long after. Windows blacked out the whole ride, ferrying me somewhere the auction house guarded like a state secret. I couldn't say I minded the mystery. Alice and I arrived dressed like nobility, though even she admitted the place made her nervous. Too many eyes, and word was this year's lots came straight from the Tower of Trials itself. Then her nose wrinkled and she froze, and I turned to find something wrapped in purple flame greeting us like an old friend. It's nice to meet you. It smelled like nothing I'd ever survived. The old man introduced himself as Julius Cedric, master to the fool who'd crossed me earlier. I turned Eye of Gluttony on him and his whole status opened up. Level 30, a necromancer grandmaster, a unique ability built on raising rotten corpses. Worth remembering. So I mentioned I'd already taken something valuable off his disciple, just to watch him twitch. Then he got to the real reason he'd come. He wanted information on someone called Unknown. I almost laughed. He was asking me about myself and had no idea. Straightforward old man. I just told him we'd talk about it some other time. We were standing somewhere far too nice for that conversation. He pushed, said it couldn't wait. I wasn't interested in giving him anything yet. Behind us, the guild goons I'd humiliated were still fuming, and Alice offered to just erase them right there. I told her no, nothing good comes from a scene in a place like this. I just wanted to buy something useful. Then the auctioneer called the room to order. First up was a meteorite pulled out of Arizona, still humming with mana since the tower appeared. Nobody in that room could actually work meteoric iron yet, so the bids crawled 300,000 tops. That made it cheap. I threw down $1 million flat, and the whole hall went silent staring at me. Next lot up was some sealed psychiatric ward catalog, and it barely got past 300,000 before Julius tripled it to a flat million without blinking. Nobody topped him. Watching him work, it clicked. He wasn't here to win one item. He was buying up everything worth having before anyone else could. A relic out of South America came next, and I jumped in early with a real plan this time. Bids climbed past $1 million, then 1.5, and Julius just cut through all of it with $3 million flat. Sold again to the old gentleman. I couldn't help but be impressed. Julius kept buying 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, snapping up every scrap of the auction. His plan was simple: burn through his fortune buying up junk, then trade it all for one thing: information on Unknown. He had no idea Unknown was standing 3 feet away. Then the auctioneer pulled out something new, the first chessboard pitched straight at collectors like him. The bids climbed fast: 50,000, 100, 150. Then someone jumped it to 8 million and the room went dead quiet. Julius didn't blink. He drove it all the way to $30 million and took the board home, grinning like he'd already won. I just watched the number climb and did the math on how much more he had left to burn. Bought that chessboard for 30 million, and now you'll beg me for a look at your precious secret. That's what he told me. I'd already bled him for fortune and he still had plenty left. I needed a better plan fast. And then, right after the gavel came down, Alice von Adraxia's voice cut through the room. 100 million. Julius's face went white. Julius wasn't backing down, not after sinking millions into junk he didn't even want. Stopping now meant admitting it was all wasted, so he pushed to 110 million, and Alice, cool as ever, doubled it flat, 200 million. I didn't say a word, I didn't have to. His man wasn't buying it, no way a stranger had 200 million sitting around, he said, and demanded proof. Alice didn't argue, she just let her power flare, and out of it came a crown alone worth more than $500 million. The room went silent, nobody doubted her again. Watching her stand there unbothered, calling us all impertinent under her breath, it hit me all over again. Whatever Alice was, she was never just some rich woman I dragged along for a night out. Julius Cedric folded first. I caught the order for Plan B, and his man came back smiling, handing over the first chessboard like this had been the plan all along. I'd been waiting for exactly that. Alice didn't even look at the prize, she just leveled a stare at the room and warned them, nobody gets to look down on her contractor. That was me, apparently. Then everything went wrong at once. The ballroom lit up red, glass shattering, people screaming to evacuate as the building itself seemed to buckle under the strain. Somebody grinning through the smoke told the fleeing crowd exactly what they were worth to him now. Sacrifices, nothing more. Alex Judrow had finally dropped the act and started charging something he called mana furnace. People dropped where they stood, clutching their heads and screaming like their skulls were splitting open. One woman begged me to save her before she went under. That did it. Something in me went cold and sharp all at once, and I looked straight at Alex Judrow. You've crossed way too far beyond the line, I told him. You sick bastard. What a repulsive necromancer, I said, and Alex Judrow actually looked offended, like I'd insulted his taste rather than his massacre. He sneered that an A-rank shouldn't even be able to stand inside his magic. I remembered him fine, though, the same smug face that had humiliated me on that private plane. Now he dropped the pretense, he'd been ordered to kill me, and he wasn't holding back anymore. I was quick enough to dodge the worst of it, and he noticed. Alice predictably had already bolted. She can't stand ugly magic like his and wasn't about to stick around for it. He wasn't unscathed either. Keeping that furnace running was clearly costing him, damage piling up with every second he kept it lit. Good, I was starting to enjoy this. I answered him with Grave of Swords, dark lightning splitting the room before Judrow even registered I'd moved. Turns out Mana Furnace wasn't his real trump card. It was raising an army of half-charred corpses off the sacrifices he'd already burned, stalling me out until I ran dry. I wasn't planning on giving him that long. So I ended it clean. While the flash of my charging light blinded him, I froze every one of his risen dead at the ankles with ice formation, told him to get lost, then opened up with daylight, one column of fused fire and ice, no warning this time. When the light cleared, his whole undead swarm was ash. Judrow dropped to his knees screaming for his precious darlings like they'd meant something to him, then scrambled to run, already muttering that he needed to get out and cut a deal to survive. I wasn't done with him. I threw him back across the floor and laid out exactly how he'd die, lungs filling with blood for 30 minutes, second worst death after burning, unless he talked. He panicked and gulped an elixir instead, screaming that he could live. The poison in his own blood didn't care. He'd never planned on answering me anyway, so I just took what I wanted off him myself, his relic, folded straight into my subspace storage, and tossed his empty ring back at his feet. Suffer as long as you can, I told him, then went to sort through what the fight had actually earned me. A man came running with his kid in tow. Turned out the boy was the host's own son, and I'd saved him without even clocking it in all the chaos. He thanked me like I'd hung the moon. I wasn't used to that kind of gratitude, but I found I didn't hate it. One gala, one dead necromancer, and I still didn't know who'd sent him after me. But with Alice at my back and a blade humming in my hand, something told me that answer wasn't going to stay hidden much longer. What I only found out much later, while I was deep in my own climb, a masked commander summoned 2 operatives into a candlelit hall. One of them, Melina, was already sniping at her stone-faced partner. She blamed her foul mood on some moron named Alex, and neither of them wanted to be there. The reason for the summons wasn't me, it was a rising climber named Kang Jinhyuk. Melina waved him off as just another grinder, but the commander wasn't convinced. If this Jinhyuk had climbed high enough to spook the people bankrolling the whole game, he was dangerous. We must not underestimate him, he said, and ordered the pair to follow Julius Cedric and remove him. Melina wasn't buying it. You fret too much, geezer. She scoffed on her way out, no idea what she was walking into. Meanwhile, on my own floor, I was mid-fight, throwing everything I had into a kick that cracked straight through whatever was still standing in my way. I hit the ground hard, dust and rubble everywhere, and for a second nobody moved. Then in some apartment I'd never see, a girl and her friend Nova pulled up footage of that very fight, dissecting every move like it was the biggest thing on the internet. Turned out I had an audience I didn't know about. Chat was going wild, calling out the human-faced tiger from the third-floor boss room, arguing whether I even knew what I was doing. None of them realized I'd already moved on to something stranger, a massive tree with a carved, ancient face who looked at me and said flatly, "I haven't seen a human in a while." I asked if it had questions for me. It did. The deal was simple: answer 3 questions right and I'd walk away with one of its maple leaves. Get even one wrong and it promised to punish me. Question 1 came wrapped in a summoned water beast, the exact depth and temperature some obscure species needed to survive. Ridiculous. I still knew the answer: 15 meters down, cold as hell. It wouldn't even confirm I'd gotten the first one right before firing off the second, some 5-hour ritual for curing a rare tissue with desert salt and holy water. I answered without blinking. Back home, the 2 strangers watching my feed nearly fell out of their chairs. I was right again. The tree guardian threw one last question at me. When did the sky eagle mate? I answered without blinking. The day of the first monsoon. Correct. It admitted no climber had ever cleared all 3 questions before, then offered me a reward: a maple leaf in red for fire, yellow for defense, or green for speed. I waved off the ordinary leaves. Red, yellow, green didn't matter. Something better was hiding in that trunk and I wanted it. Hand over the black leaf, I said. The tree froze like I'd caught it stealing. Its whole body seemed to flinch. How could I possibly know about that? It begged first, offering me 2 ordinary leaves instead of the one I actually wanted. I didn't blink. One more push and it caved, handing over the black leaf, an AAA-grade relic warped with its own corruption, rarer than anything else that tree had ever paid out. What I didn't see was the guard detail posted on my floor, grumbling that their only job was to wait around till I finished. Mid-complaint, they just weren't there anymore, gone without a sound, and the ones still standing scrambled to save every scrap of footage they had. Close by, Julius Cedric, the necromancer grandmaster who'd been hunting me since that auction, raised his hand over a legion of hollow, hooded corpses. "He's already begun," he said. His heartless army was moving now, and it was moving for me. Elsewhere, another climber entirely was live to a million strangers, Kang Jinhyuk, cold as ice, telling his chat to trust him or don't. He didn't care either way. Then his face went still. "There's someone else here," he said, and cut the feed cold. "Today's stream ends here." The clash was already underway when I got there, corpse soldiers and guild fighters locked together, and for a moment I couldn't tell who was winning. Then our line started pushing. Someone on our side barked to keep pressing the advantage, and slowly, unmistakably, the tide started bending our way. I was raining sword energy from range, trying to break their formation, and it worked almost too well. The enemy started scrambling, screaming for someone to raise their shields against attacks they couldn't trace. Then a shout gave me away. They'd spotted the masked man picking them apart, and the whole line turned toward me. A blast of dark power came in fast, and I had exactly enough time to think that's going to hurt before it landed dead center. Blessing of the star kicked in and pulled me back from the edge. That divine backlash didn't just save me, it also ripped the enemy's control loose, and I heard their commanders panicking that the undead were no longer listening to them. I hit the 3rd control point and it went down screaming. Cedric II reported the loss like it was fresh news and got told exactly how obvious that was. I checked the status window myself, 4 positions holding the whole undead network together, 1 already gone. Knock out the first and the entire structure collapses. I torched the next target myself and couldn't resist needling him on the way. For something that size, he sure moved slow. That's when Battle Moe rose to block me, a hulking stone guardian built to buy time. Word had already reached the others that I was coming, and panic set in fast. Stop him now. No was the only answer I gave the thing trying to stop me, and the first position went down right after, the last piece of their command network gone. Cedric finally cracked, screaming that I'd ruined his plans one too many times, and decided to burn everything he had left on me, ignoring every warning about the mana cost. He threw both arms up and screamed for his masters to wake. The ground split, and monstrous armored guardians tore free of it, eyes burning red, his full power, unleashed all at once, aimed straight at me. Cedric didn't waste time licking his wounds. He grabbed one of his own men and drained the life clean out of him. The guy screamed like he was being torn apart, while Cedric just stood there feeling better by the second. Even his own allies weren't safe from him. Fully healed, all he said was, "Shall we get back to it?" Fine by me. If he wanted round two, I'd already made up my mind, Alice at my back, blade in hand. I wasn't walking away until his whole army was ash. Then he showed me what he'd been saving. Mummy soldiers wrapped in bandages hard as steel, armor and weapon in one. His strongest troops, ones he swore he'd been saving for the third-floor boss. "I'll at least save some face if I kill you here," he said. Bold talk for a man who just healed himself by feeding off his own soldier. I came in hard and caught him off guard. For a second his whole army buckled. What I only found out later, word was already spreading through the broadcast that I'd bitten off more than I could chew. Hunters watching from a distance wrote me off completely, convinced I'd misjudged the gap between us and doomed myself trying to play hero. They figured Cedric's undead alone were bad enough and decided this wasn't their fight to jump into. Then mid-swing I did something that made even them stop and stare, because an old memory came rushing back, a voice from years ago cutting through the noise. "Your sword is sharp and powerful." He'd once shown me a rope and told me a blade swung on pure strength just scatters its force. A true master moves like wind, grounded and fluid, releasing everything in one clean strike. I called that lesson back up mid-fight, and a piece of the soul-chasing sword dance came alive in my hands. Whatever hit next, it wasn't anything Cedric was ready for. The system flared. My grasp on the soul-chasing sword dance had just spiked hard. Cedric spun up a whirlpool of mana strong enough to drag in everything around it, but I answered with the fifth movement, the soul-chasing heaven obliteration, and slammed a double shield up right behind it. This fight was far from over. Cedric's eyes went wide, panic creeping in. How did I already have power like this? He must have been screaming to himself. My strike caught him clean. He reeled back, choking, blood in his throat. For the first time all fight, the old necromancer actually looked afraid. He staggered and something in him cracked. This was a fight he suddenly knew he couldn't win, so he screamed at his own men to protect him, to buy the seconds he needed to run. "Funny," I said, "you fight exactly like that disciple of yours." "No," I corrected myself, "he learned that from you." Something clicked behind his eyes and his face went white with dread. "You bastard," he choked out, trembling. "That means you're Kang Jinhyuk." Wrong name. I wasn't about to correct him. "Send your disciple my regards," I said instead, and watched real fear finally reach his eyes. I roared and let it end there. "I'll send you to him," I said, "since he's probably bored down there on his own," and pointed the flames straight at what was left of his army. His own men just stood frozen, muttering that something was wrong with the summons, wondering out loud if Cedric Nim could really be gone. The mummy soldiers went up screaming, fire eating through steel-hard bandages until there was nothing left to command. It cost me, though pulling off the soul-chasing heaven obliteration at my level wasn't something my body just shrugged off. I probably pushed myself a bit too far. Still breathing hard, I climbed toward the gate ahead and picked up a mana recovery potion along the way. I downed the potion. Leaving now would have been a waste after everything I'd fought through, so I told myself I could push a little longer. Something caught my eye in the wreckage, a shield, the same kind I used to mess around with back in my gaming days. Found it funny how nostalgic that felt. I picked it up and turned to the others. "Don't you think so too, guys?" The temple's own defenders answered first, 4 armored guardian statues, the 4 heavenly kings, tearing loose from stone and swinging swords wreathed in cold light. There was no room to talk my way past them. I planted my feet and went straight through all 4 at once. Before I dove back in, I checked on the one fighting beside me, Alice von Adraxia, blade already drawn, daring the temple to throw more at us. Whatever waited past those guardians, we were going in together. The 4 heavenly kings didn't talk, and honestly I loved that about them. Silent, relentless, swinging in unison, but stone breaks like anything else once you find the seam. I cracked them open, told them to spit out the key, and finally let myself breathe. I was tired. Past them stood the stone pagoda of enlightenment, and the key to the main room lit up in my hand like it recognized the place. Somewhere beyond the gate, something felt that too and started reaching back. Then came the summons, a named monster tearing itself into being, the 1,000-armed and 1,000-eyed Avalokite Svara. It introduced itself politely enough, annoyed a human had lasted this long, unimpressed by my nerve. I wasn't in the mood to flatter a statue, so I told it to hurry up and die already. It just smiled wider. "Savor this moment," it said, and came at me with a dozen arms swinging. Golden arms crashed down like a landslide, and for a second I thought my whole body was going to give out. But I only had one shot at this, so I swallowed the pain and unleashed everything I had. Ice formation ripped through the air, and the thousand-armed and thousand-eyed Avalokitesvara vanished behind a wall of ice. It came up spitting curses, calling my ice filthy witchcraft, and I let it rage, because underneath the frost I'd already slipped blood demon Kai into its blood, poison ticking away with every heartbeat. I took an arm off it clean. It laughed that off, swore the same trick wouldn't land twice. Fine by me, the arm was never the point. Because while it was busy gloating, I scanned it, and the system pinged with a fusion match on its unique ability, Mandala. Then it showed me the price: freeze the Avalokitesvara in ice for 5 minutes, carve it a beautiful sculpture, and serenade it with an appropriate song while I worked. I stared at that condition for a long, dead-eyed moment. The system was getting worse by the day. Still, I wanted Mandala more than I wanted my dignity. This was the only place below the 25th floor to get it, so I wasn't backing out. The Avalokitesvara demanded to know what I was doing, then started begging once it figured it out. Didn't matter. I froze it solid, carved its statue note by note, singing the whole time. I hated every second of it too.